Chapter 8:16. When he turned around and left, he even spat in Tian Shulin's direction, his eyes filled with disdain. Sigh. The elders of Quanglong Academy shook their heads. Although they didn't know what kind of misunderstanding had happened between the president and the vice president, Yilong Yuan had designated the mysterious golden-robed man as the new president. Then this was fate. In an instant, the elders of Quanglong Academy led their disciples away from Xingyue Academy. This was another slap to Tian Shulin and Tian Daoyuo's faces. If Yilong Yuan wasn't present, Tian Daoyuo would have killed the people of Quanglong Academy with that spit. It's your turn now, President Shi Fang. Yilong Yuan didn't give up. He smiled meaningfully at President Shi Fang. Slap, slap, slap. In the next second, under everyone's shocked expressions, Headmaster Shi Fang slapped himself 10 times in the face. He used so much strength that his face turned red and swollen. He said, as the headmaster of an academy, this old man didn't teach and educate people properly. I shouldn't have gathered people to cause trouble and wasted Emperor Long Yuan's time, causing you to be distracted even when you're so busy every day. I'm extremely ashamed. I'll take my disciples back immediately. Also, I feel that I'm old and weak and no longer suitable to be the president. Then, Emperor Long Yuan will appoint the next president. After saying that, President Shi Fang bowed to Yilong Yuan and walked out of Xingyue Academy in a dispirited manner. At least you know what to do. Yilong Yuan snorted coldly in his heart. He glanced at Qin Hao as if to ask, are you satisfied now? Qin Hao rubbed his nose and smiled, which meant, yes, it's not bad. Yilong Kuan was crippled, and the president of Quanglong Academy and the president of Quanglong Academy were replaced. In fact, it was also good for the Yi clan. Wait, old man Shi Fang, stop right there. We said that our friendship would last until the end of time. Are you scared out of your wits? You're simply a fence-sitter. I'm ashamed of you. Tian Shulin couldn't bear to see Qin Hao proud and shouted angrily out of humiliation. When President Shi Fang heard that, he turned his head with a cold face. Last until the end of time? That's a righteous person like Yao Chun. Do you think you're worthy of that? The fact that I am not ashamed of you is the greatest gift I can give you. The disciples of the 10 Directions Academy hurriedly left with the old man, lest they be tainted by the filthy air of Star Moon Academy. Principal Shi Fang flicked his sleeves and left. His cursing made the stars and moon disciples lose face. After Dean Shi Fang left with his people, a large empty space was cleared out at the scene. Tian Shulin's camp was completely isolated. Yilong Yuan, that's enough. Aren't you going through so much trouble just to slap my face? Are you sure you want to publicly make an enemy out of me, Tian Daoyuo, for a little bastard like Qin Hao? Tian Daoyuo could not take it anymore. He clenched his fist and unleashed his emperor-level aura. The purpose of his visit this time was to support his father and give him face. However, Yilong Yuan dismissed all the allies of the Tian family with a few words. No matter what, it was an insult to the Tian clan. Instantly, a dazzling golden flame rose from the top of Tian Daoyuo's head, reaching a height of 100 meters. When an emperor-level cultivator was enraged, its power was not to be underestimated. The ground of Starry Moon Academy trembled, causing everyone to retreat in fear. Third stage primitive emperor? Qin Hao narrowed his eyes slightly and judged Tian Daoyuo's cultivation based on the strength of his aura. He was amused, but at the same time, he was relieved. Because Yilong Yuan was much stronger than Tian Daoyuo. They were not on the same level at all. Tian Daoyuo had overestimated himself by coming here. It was no different from courting death. Of course, Yilong Yuan would not kill Tian Daoyuo no matter what. After all, Tian Daoyuo's identity was enough to make Emperor Luo Shui wary. Therefore, Qin Hao heaved a sigh of relief because he could kill this third-stage primitive emperor. Enemy? So what if I am your enemy? You came from the northern borderline to Luo Shui to cause trouble. Do you have any respect for me, Yilong Yuan? Yilong Yuan was also angry. His loose pajamas fluttered in the wind. Then, golden flame shot up into the sky from his body. Even his hair was blown up by the wind. The height of the flame instantly surpassed Tian Daluo's and reached a height of 1,000 meters. With the release of Yi Long Yuan's aura, not only was the ground of Xingyue Academy trembling, but the vast land of Western Liang was also trembling. 8th-stage primitive emperor. Tian Daluo opened his mouth wide in shock. Looking at Yi Long Yuan, who was immersed in the light, his expression changed drastically. He never expected that Yi Long Yuan, who was hiding in the barren Western Liang, would have such a terrifying cultivation base. He was only one stage away from reaching Emperor Yuan's level. Even if he wasn't Emperor Yuan, killing 10,000 Tian Daluos was just a matter of moving his little finger. Every stage in the Emperor level was like a layer of heaven. The difference in levels was too obvious. Long Yuan, let's talk nicely. I didn't want to offend you this time. In fact, I came here to admire you. You were the #1 genius 20 years ago. Tian Daluo immediately admitted defeat. He smiled and took the initiative to disperse his aura. Compared to Yi Long Yuan's aura, he was simply asking for humiliation. Along with this, Tian Shulin looked at Tian Daluo in disbelief. Was this still the son he was so proud of? The same went for the House Killing Blade. Was this still his domineering master who could do whatever he wanted in Beijiang? And he even made up a ridiculous lie and came here to admire Yi Long Yuan? How dare he say that? For the last time, before I lose my temper, take your people and go back to where you came from. I, Yi Long Yuan, don't want to waste my time on trash. You have no right to admire me. Yi Long Yuan pointed at Tian Daluo's nose. This person was indeed extraordinary back then. The royal family even decided to focus on cultivating him. However, Tian Daluo looked down on Luo Shui and hated Western Liang even more. He went to seek refuge with the sect in Beijiang. Today, Yi Long Yuan used facts to prove it. One was not destined to be superior just because they climbed to a higher position. In the end, what they had to rely on was their own ability. The corner of Tian Daluo's eyes twitched violently. He was obviously shocked by Yi Long Yuan's cultivation base. Similarly, when the word trash fell on top of his head, Tian Daluo almost went berserk, but he still held it in. Relying on the huge resources of the Zhanyue mansion, he became an emperor-level expert in just over 20 years. He thought that his achievement was unparalleled. However, he was surpassed by Yi Long Yuan. Yi Long Yuan did have the right to be arrogant, but it did not mean that Tian Daluo was afraid. He took a deep breath and said calmly, Long Yuan, I think you've misunderstood. Although I'm an elder of the Zhanyue mansion, I'm also a Luo Shui. Today's matter is a personal feud between the Tian family and Qiangbin. It has nothing to do with the sect. We're all Luo Shui. We're all your people. As an emperor, don't you think it's unfair for you to be so rude and unreasonable to protect the other party? Tian Daluo's words hit the nail on the head. He showed that it was a dispute between the Xingyue mansion and the sect of Luo Shui. Undoubtedly, Yi Long Yuan had no reason to intervene. If Yi Long Yuan overly protected Qin Hao, it would have a great impact if the news spread. At this moment, Yi Long Yuan fell silent. Tian Daluo smiled proudly and continued. Of course, if you insist that the Zhanyue mansion is provoking the Luo Shui, does that mean that you're declaring war on the Great Yin Empire? If so, the royal family of the Great Yin Empire will not be afraid of you, right, Your Highness? As he spoke, Tian Daluo turned his head and looked at the arrogant young man who came with him. The arrogant young man was dressed in ordinary clothes. Although it was not the uniform of the Zhanyue mansion, it was obviously in the style of the northern borderline. He had not said a word since he came. When Tian Daluo's father, Tian Shulin, bowed to him, his face was full of disdain. At this moment, the young man stood up methodically and exuded a noble aura. He said in a glib voice, Oh, is that so? Does Emperor Luo Shui intend to declare war on the Great Yin Empire, the #1 empire of the northern borderline? I don't think so, because I think you're not that stupid, Yi Long Yuan. Huh. Chapter 817. He didn't take Yi Long Yuan seriously at all. He leisurely took out a piece of candy and put it in his mouth. He rolled the candy with his tongue, stirred it twice, and sucked in a mouthful of sweet liquid. He continued, "Sorry, I hope I didn't scare you. Next, allow me to introduce myself. All of you, clean your ears and listen carefully." Cough, cough. The young man covered his mouth with his hand, coughed twice, and cleared his throat. He raised his head arrogantly, and the word arrogant was written on his forehead. "Emperor Yin of Beijiang is my father. Crown Prince Murong Zijuan is my brother, and I am the first prince of Beiyin to be given the title of prince. Remember my title, the Great Prince of Qinzhou. My name is Murong Zi Shuai." Murong Zi Shuai pointed at his own nose. Since Murong Zijuan was made the crown prince, the other princes were given the title of prince at most. But not every prince was lucky enough to be given the title of prince, unless they made a great contribution. As the crown prince's brother and the second son of the empress, Murong Zi Shuai was also deeply favored by Emperor Yin. He was specially taken care of and was directly given the title of prince. Hiss! The scene was as silent as cicadas in winter. They didn't expect Murong Zi Shuai's position to be so high. The second prince of the strongest country in Beijiang was given the title of Prince of Qinzhou by Emperor Yin. In the eyes of ordinary people, the Prince of Beiyin was obviously more honorable than the Emperor of Luoshui, even if Murong Zijuan was just a prince. It was like a general's son in Luoshui going to a small country. The emperor of the small country also had to treat him well and didn't dare to be negligent. In Murong Zi Shuai's opinion, Yi Longyuan should fawn on him in the next second. Unfortunately, Yi Longyuan didn't. Although he did not curry favor with the other party, Yi Longyuan frowned all the way to the top of his head, feeling embarrassed. If he continued to intervene, he would undoubtedly fall into Tian Daluo's trap. Tian Daluo would accuse him of provoking Beiyin. Moreover, he would have a bad reputation of being partial to Qin Hao. But if he didn't intervene, no one in Xi'an would be a match for Tian Daluo. What should he do? Qin Hao was his son's good brother, and he saved Yi Shuin's life. At this moment, Yi Longyuan was really in a dilemma. He secretly clenched his fists. When Tian Daluo saw Yi Longyuan's expression, he could not help but feel elated. He thought to himself, "What bullsh asterisk T Luoshui Emperor. In fact, he can't compare to any prince of northern Yin. A country bumpkin will always be a country bumpkin." As expected, Qin Hao sighed softly. His guess was right. As expected, Tian Daluo had a backup plan. He had found a backer from the northern Yin kingdom to suppress Yi Longyuan and prevent him from interfering. Although Murong Zi Shuai didn't seem to have any cultivation and his aura was extremely weak, he was practically a hedonistic son who only knew how to eat, drink, and play. However, his identity was enough to make Yi Longyuan fear him. They're both second princes, but why is there such a huge difference? Qin Yu grumbles from behind. He was the second prince of the Daqin Empire, but compared to Murong Zi Shuai's temperament, alas, God was unfair. After all, the Daqin Empire was too weak, even weaker than Luoshui. If he stood out, Murong Zi Shuai would not even bother to look at him. He was even not qualified to stand in front of Murong Zi Shuai. What do you think, Yi Longyuan? In fact, I didn't ask second prince to reveal his identity at the beginning, which was already very polite to you. If you know what's good for you, don't meddle in other people's business. Otherwise, you'll be the enemy of the Yin kingdom. Do you want Luoshui to be destroyed? Tian Daluo began to be presumptuous again. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Longyuan's face, which was full of anger and trembling, but there was nothing he could do. He really felt funny. "Father, you can't let them be arrogant. Boss Qin Hao saved my life," Yi Shuihan said hurriedly. Yi Longyuan also wanted to kill them, but if he did that, Luoshui would really be destroyed. "It's okay, Shuihan." At this time, Qin Hao took 2 steps forward, patted Yi Shuihan on the shoulder, and then nodded at Yi Longyuan. "Uncle Longyuan, you don't need to intervene in this matter. Kill a traitor from Western Liang, a bastard who defected to a sect in Beijiang. If you do that, you'll dirty yourself." As Qin Hao spoke, he sneered at Tian Daluo. "Boy, what did you say?" Tian Daluo was furious. "I said you're a bastard who forgot your homeland. You even abandoned the land that raised you. How dare you come back?" Since you deliberately came back to show off that you have a bastard father in Beijing, I'll accept you. All right, I'll do as you say. I'll have a fair fight with you. This is a fight between Qi Yang and Xing Yue. It has nothing to do with Luo Shui and Northern Yen. How about it? Do you dare to accept? Qin Hao pointed at Tian Daluo's face with great pride. Qin Hao, you're too reckless. This time, Yilong Yuan was anxious. In fact, Qin Hao had taken the initiative to accept the challenge before he even said that he would not interfere. Tian Daluo was an emperor powerhouse. He could kill a venerable as easily as killing a chicken or a duck. Qin Hao did not even have 1% of Yao Lao's ability. How dare he challenge Tian Daluo? Was he crazy? Howard, don't force yourself. Qin Shilong and Qin Laosi were anxious. Hai Dafu, who was in the crowd, clenched his fists nervously. His forehead was covered in sweat. Qin Hao had gone too far this time. Even though Hai Dafu was one of the 12 members of the Commerce Alliance, he could not save Qin Hao if Tian Daluo decided to kill him. The Commerce Alliance's influence was limited to Western Liang. Big brother, are you crazy? This time, even Xiaowa had lost confidence in Qin Hao. A king stage cultivator against an emperor stage cultivator? They were from two different worlds. The gap between their levels was huge. There was no doubt that they would die. What? Even you don't believe in Big Brother's ability? In response, Qin Hao turned his head and smiled at Xiaowa. His smile was full of confidence. It was the same smile he had when he first met Xiaowa and killed Shirtaino. He was absolutely confident. No, Big Brother, it's too dangerous. Forget it, I'll fight with you. I'm also a disciple of the Qiyang sect. Me too. Me too. Me too. Xing, Yi Wuhan, the Nayland sisters, and Han Man stepped forward without hesitation. We're also disciples of the Qiyang sect. We're willing to fight with senior brother Qin Hao. Swoosh. 600 elites of the Qiyang sect stepped forward in unison. They might be afraid in the face of an emperor powerhouse, but they did not back down in the end. A bunch of overconfident bugs. Are you all tired of living? Tian Daluo was so angry that he started laughing. 600 juniors who had not even reached the king stage challenged him, an emperor powerhouse. If news of this spread to the northern borderline, the disciples of the Zhanyue mansion would probably laugh at Qin Hao and his group. I'll show you whether you're overconfident or not. Don't worry, we won't bully you with numbers. I alone am enough to kill you. Why would the Qiyang sect be afraid of fight? Qin Hao waved his hand and forbade Xiaowa and the others from coming forward. Then, he stepped forward steadily, looking as if he was not afraid of death. Sighs came from all directions when they saw this. They did not know whether to curse Qin Hao for his stupidity or praise his courage. However, in the end, Qin Hao could only die. He would die a horrible death. Yao Lao did not stop him. It seemed that he was powerless. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a hearty laugh came from the sky. The voice was crisp. It was a woman. Well said. Why would I, Qiyang sect, be afraid of a fight with a mere Western Liang traitor? Qin Hao stepped back. I'll take care of Tian Daluo. Otherwise, he really thinks that I, Qiyang sect, have no one. Chapter 8:18. She was wearing a white veil over her face, so they couldn't see her face clearly. However, they could vaguely see her graceful figure through her loose white robe. Her figure was mature and charming. She was big in the right places and curvy in the right places, which made people's imaginations run wild. Furthermore, after she landed, a fragrant aroma began to spread from her body, causing one to become intoxicated by it. Even though they couldn't see her face clearly, they believed that she was a super beauty. In fact, they were right. The next moment, she took off the veil on her face, revealing her beautiful face. She smiled. Judging from her face and figure, she was a woman. However, she took good care of herself. Her skin was even more tender than a girl's, and her breath was like a ripe apple. Everyone was stunned, including the two martial emperors, Yilong Yuan and Tian Daluo. They looked as if they had lost their souls and were stunned. Many middle-aged men at the scene swallowed their saliva instinctively and felt their bodies heat up. However, no one noticed that Yi Shuihan's features were somewhat similar to this woman's. Hello, honorable madam. First of all, allow me to introduce myself sincerely. My name is Tian Daluo, and I am the powerful Grand Elder of the Zhanyuan Mansion in northern Yen. May I ask where you are from? Why are you here? Just why was he standing together with Qin Hao, an ant that wasn't even worth mentioning? Are you trying to stop the feud between us? To be honest, I am a martial emperor. I can easily destroy half of the Luo Shui Empire with a snap of my fingers. Tian Daluo was so infatuated that he didn't put on airs at all. He even forgot who he was. He walked up to the woman with a smile on his face and introduced himself. He introduced his high status and awesome strength. In fact, he was telling her in another way, my cultivation is lawless. Almost no one is my match. However, I have tender feelings for you, and I don't want to kill you. Therefore, you'd better stay away from Qin Hao to avoid accidentally injuring him. Although Tian Daluo said that he didn't have any murderous intent, he even ignored the existence of Qin Hao. His face was like a pig, and he only had eyes for the beautiful woman. Tian Daluo's passionate actions almost made Yi Longyuan go berserk. In an instant, his eyes were bloodshot, and his fists were clenched so tightly that crackling sounds could be heard. It was as if Tian Daluo had killed his father. In short, Yi Longyuan was about to lose control of himself. Fortunately, the focus was on this lady, so no one noticed the dragon Abyss Emperor's loss of self-control. This lady is so charming. It's a beautiful big sister. But who is she? After a long time, the various sect masters finally woke up from the aura emitted by the noble woman and began to speculate. Similarly, Qin Hao was also puzzled. He frowned slightly and asked, Old Auntie, may I ask who you are? Why are you helping me? In truth, Qin Hao could faintly sense that this woman, who seemed as gentle as a lamb, actually possessed a monstrous and terrifying cultivation base. She gave him a strong sense of danger. This feeling was almost the same as the pressure caused by Yi Longyuan. Therefore, Qin Hao addressed her as Old Auntie, very seriously to express his respect. Smack! Unexpectedly, the woman's eyes widened, and she slapped Qin Hao's head directly. She scolded angrily. You little brat, how dare you call me Old Auntie? How am I old? You're really... The woman was so angry that she couldn't speak coherently. She hated it when people called her old. She took 2 deep breaths and told herself to calm down. After all, Qin Hao was her son's boss. I don't want to waste time explaining. Yao Chun, tell them who I am. Xin Qiue raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at Yao Lao. Yao Chun is here to greet Qi Yang's chieftain. In the next second, Yao Lao did a 90-degree bow in front of Xin Qiue. Boom! His action was like a clap of thunder that struck everyone's heads. They were so shocked that their eyes widened. The president who had disappeared for more than 20 years? Could it be that this woman was one of the 3 secrets of Luo Shui, the rumored Grandma Osmanthus? This discovery immediately scared Tian Shulin, who couldn't help screaming. He knew very well that Grandma Osmanthus's cultivation was said to be on par with Yi Longyuan's. That's not all. What are you waiting for? The Pavilion Master is here in person. Why don't you greet her? The Pavilion Master is the highest-level alchemist in the land of Western Lyon. She's also the only 9th-level royal alchemist. There are only a few of them on the whole continent. At this time, an angry reprimand was heard. Another figure fell from the sky. He was wearing a purple robe and a Kylon mask. He was the highest governor of Dangu, the imperial censor, whom Qin Hao had met at the alchemy competition. Zhen Kaiwa and the others suddenly froze. Because their levels were too low, they were not qualified to meet the real Pavilion Master. However, the imperial censor was the most authoritative figure in Dangu except for Yao Lao. Since he said so, the noblewoman was definitely the Pavilion Master with superb alchemy skills. In fact, the alchemists of Dangu joined Dangu because they had a common god in their hearts, the royal alchemist who they had only heard of but had never seen in person. They just hoped that one day they would be able to meet the supreme alchemist in their hearts. Today, their dream finally came true. In an instant, All of the Pill Pavilion elders and hall masters knelt down in excitement. They were practically prostrating themselves in worship as they shouted, "Greetings, esteemed pavilion master!" Crack, boom, bang, bang, bang. Everyone felt as if the sky had collapsed and the earth had collapsed. Their faces were full of shock. Qi Yang's missing president was actually the pavilion master of the Elixir Pavilion? Oh my god. Two of Luo Shui's 3 big secrets were revealed on the day when Qin Hao made a scene in Star's Moon Academy. Boom. Then, many disciples of Dan Ge couldn't bear the excitement and fainted one after another. The lucky ones fainted. The president is actually Dan Ge's pavilion master. The pavilion master is a royal alchemist. His alchemy skills are one of the best in the entire continent. Mother will be saved this time. Nalan Li and Naransu were so happy that they were crying. As for Qin Hao, he was also stunned in place. This time, even he was astonished. Look at how silly you are. It's not over yet. I still have a third identity. Xanque was very satisfied with Qin Hao's surprise. Then, she poked Qin Hao's forehead with her slender finger. She continued to speak and looked at Yilan Yuan. Yilan Yuan, why don't you come out and express yourself? At this moment, Yilan Yuan clenched his fists because Tian Daluo was so jealous that his eyes were about to spit fire. He roared crazily and spat out a bunch of saliva. Of course I have to express myself. I wanted to express myself for a long time. That's right. She's also the mother of my son. Shuihan, you went to Qiangbin to become a disciple. Chapter 819. Mother, are you really my mother? Yi Shuihan's eyes began to moisten. He trembled and walked slowly toward Xinque. After he was born, he didn't know who his parents were. He was brought up by Old Man Huang, who played the role of an old servant. However, he was never short of money to spend, good clothes to wear, elixirs, and high-grade cultivation techniques. He was always the one who bullied others. No one dared to bully him because those who bullied him, no matter who they were, would die the next day, strangely. He felt that his background was extremely complicated and must be hiding a big secret. It was not until later when he was kidnapped by Yuan Tianzai and brought to the Dark Night Forest that he learned that his father was the current dragon Abyss Emperor. But who was his mother? Yi Shuihan still didn't know. He secretly found that Old Man Huang was an elder of Qiyang. Why did Old Man Huang stay in Qiyang? Yi Shuihan didn't know. He instinctively felt that it was related to his mother. So, he wanted to join Qiyang and become its disciple to solve the doubts in his heart. Today, he finally got the long-awaited answer. The chief dean of Qiyang was his birth mother. His mother was also the Colossus of Western Liang, Pavilion Master Dan Ge. At this moment, Yi Shuihan's throat was choked. Before he walked to Xinque, his face was already covered in tears. He hadn't seen his mother for 20 years. How could he not be excited and feel wronged? He threw himself at Xinque's feet, hugged her leg, and burst into tears. This scene caused everyone's expression to change, and even more so, they were shocked. So far, Luo Shui's 3 secrets had all been solved. The Dragon Abyss Emperor, who had more than 20 daughters, actually hid an illegitimate son. Heavens! Many people rolled their eyes and fainted again. Child, I'm sorry. After you were born, I didn't fulfill my responsibility as a mother. But it's all that bastard Yilong Yuan's fault. On the day you gave birth, he ordered the midwife to take you away secretly and hid you for 20 years. I didn't even feed you a mouthful of milk. I've been looking for you for the past 20 years. I've been thinking about you all the time. You're my flesh and blood. Xinque was in tears, and the raindrops in her eyes fell. She hugged Yi Shuihan's head tightly, afraid that her son would suddenly disappear again. At this moment, he glared at Yilan Yuan with hatred. Yilan Yuan quickly turned his head to the side, not daring to look at her. Then, he tidied up his pajamas and pretended to be calm. Congratulations, Shuihan. Congratulations to you too, old president, for finding your son. Qin Hao went up to congratulate him and almost said the wrong thing again. I feel very embarrassed. Stinking brat, how dare you call me old? Xinque could not help but chuckle. She hit Qin Hao's head again with very light strength. Then, she helped Yishuihan up and said, "Son, you stay here and watch. After I'm done with Tian Daluo, I'll make pancakes for you and Qin Hao." Pancakes? Pancakes! Yishuihan and Qin Hao were stunned at the same time and looked at each other. Could it be that president of Qiyang University and Pavilion Master Dangu had a fourth identity? Ahem, that's right. I'm the old lady who sells pancakes at the entrance of Qiyang University. Xinqa nodded proudly and admitted it. She wiped her face with her hand, and her face instantly aged. Then, she wiped it again and returned to her original appearance. Her easy speed and ingenious method immediately shocked everyone, including Qin Hao. This method was indeed extremely brilliant. Qin Hao also found that the other party's disguise technique was very similar to his own. That's why I recognized you at a glance when you brought Qin Hao to buy pancakes that day. No, how could I let the two of you cut the queue directly? I even gave you an extra gift before you left. Xinqa snorted. Then, she suddenly thought of something and quickly asked Yishuihan, "Are the pancakes made by Mother delicious?" "Boss, are the pancakes made by my mother delicious?" At this time, Yishuihan asked Qin Hao with a blank face. He did not eat it at all. It's okay. The noodles are very chewy, and the ingredients are very high quality. It's very helpful for my cultivation. Qin Hao praised Xinqa. After drinking the 8 treasures porridge and eating the pancakes, there was a strange force in her body that stimulated her cultivation to slowly improve. It was indeed very helpful for Qin Hao when he defeated Li Xianfeng, He Kuei, and Kongshan Birdman. The president has been protecting us all this time, but we didn't know, and we even scolded her in private. I'm so ashamed. In an instant, more than 600 Qiyang Inner Court disciples lowered their heads in shame. They had all eaten the pancakes made by Grandma Pancake. It turned out that the president did not abandon Qiyang University. For 20 years, she stood guard at the entrance of the university and watched generations of students grow, graduate, establish their fame, and become heroes. She turned her love into pancakes and selflessly offered them to Qiyang students to help them cultivate. Sigh. Yao Lao sighed. Compared to Xinqa, he felt that he was fortunate to be in the medical tower. At the very least, the medical tower could shelter him from the wind and rain. Xinqa stood at the entrance of the university, regardless of rain or shine. She would appear on time every day, regardless of the 4 seasons, regardless of how bad the weather was. Furthermore, when she turned into Grandma Pancake, she had to hide her cultivation and become an ordinary person. She had suffered a lot. All right, son. You and Qin Hao watch from the side first. Mother will deal with Tian Daluo first. How dare you declare war on Qiyang University? Come on, I can't ask for more. Xinqa let go of Yishuihan and walked toward Tian Daluo while emitting a cold aura. Interesting, Tian Daluo sneered. It was no wonder that this beautiful woman wanted to stand up for Qin Hao. It turned out that she was the president of Qiyang University. But so what? Tian Daluo was not afraid at all. After all, the vice president of Qiyang University was only a level 6 Yuan Venerate. Even if the president was slightly stronger, he could not be that strong. He definitely did not believe that Xinqa was a martial emperor powerhouse. Therefore, Tian Daluo was very confident in himself. However, he was really reluctant to kill a woman with such a temperament. In fact, Tian Daluo had fallen in love with Xinqa at first sight. Unfortunately, she was not only the president of Qiyang University, but also Yi Long Yuan's woman. Yi Long Yuan was always involved in all the good things. At this moment, Tian Daluo could not help but feel a surge of anger. Immediately, he vented his anger on Xinqa. Since he could not defeat Yi Long Yuan, he would torture his woman. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Yi Long Yuan took a big step forward and stood between Xinqa and Tian Daluo domineeringly. His face was so gloomy that water could drip from it. This is no longer a private matter between the sections. It's my family matter. My wife is the president of Qiyang University, and my son is a disciple of Qiyang University. Since you want to declare war on Qiyang University, how can I tolerate it? I am not only the ruler of a country, but I am also a father. Chapter 820. Dirty thing, there's something dirty on my face. You dirty thing, how dare you spit disgusting saliva on my face? Someone come and save me. Murong Shui screamed as he tore his face with both hands. His eyes were wide open as if he had seen the most terrifying thing. He lived like a prince and was obsessed with cleanliness. When he screamed, the elders of the Zhanyue mansion were so anxious that they found a few buckets of water and splashed it on Murong Shui's body. They wiped him with their sleeves. Tian Daluo was not in the mood. His face was gloomy, and the corners of his eyes were twitching. Yilong Yuan was going to abandon the Supreme Emperor and fight for Qiyang as a father. This was human nature. Even if the news spread, no one would say anything. On the contrary, it would win the respect of the people. But Xian Qiue did not appreciate it. She pushed Yilong Yuan away and said, "Get out of my way. Are you trying to flatter me? I will never forgive you. I will never forgive you." Today's battle, this old lady is determined to win. Yilong Yuan was embarrassed. He was indeed trying to please Xian Qiue so that they could rekindle their passion. Are you serious? Tian Daluo was pleasantly surprised that Xian Qiue did not want Yilong Yuan to interfere. I'm just dealing with a piece of trash like you. Even if I do it, I'll feel inferior. Xian Qiue said disdainfully. Ha ha ha, you're shameless. Since you insist on humiliating yourself, don't blame me for not showing mercy to you. I'm going to destroy you today. Tian Daluo's mind was set. With great confidence, he rolled up his sleeves and prepared to go all out. Luo, or you can't, Tian Shulin was anxious. He knew that Xian Qiue's combat strength was fierce. It was said that she was comparable to Yilong Yuan. Tian Daluo was definitely not her match. However, Tian Daluo was too confident and treated her like air. He wanted to see what qualifications a woman like Xian Qiue had to show off in front of him. A royal-grade alchemist? That was pure nonsense. It was more like a bluff. Royal-grade alchemists were rare even in the vast northern borderline. Tian Daluo only knew that the deputy mansion master of the Zhanyue mansion was a royal-grade alchemist. Although his cultivation was lower than Tian Daluo's, he was only a second-level royal-grade alchemist. However, the entire sect, including the mansion master, regarded the vice mansion master as a celestial being. If there was a royal-grade alchemist in Western Liang, Tian Daluo would change his name to Luo Datian. In the next second, his dream came true. Because a golden flame burst forth from Xian Qiue's body. The flame was incomparably turbulent, like a flaming pillar that was burning the heavens. It soared straight into the sky, reaching a height of 3,000 feet. In an instant, the entire Starry Moon Academy was shaken by this power. Seventh stage primitive emperor. Tian Daluo's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. He was shocked beyond words. He didn't expect that the harmless Xian Qiue was really an Emperor Realm expert. What was even more unexpected was that the other party's cultivation was so far behind him that it was almost on par with Yilong Yuan's. Although it was weaker than Yilong Yuan in terms of strength, it was more than enough to kill 1,000 Tian Daluos. When Tian Shulin saw this, he shook his head and said, "It's over. Luo has kicked an iron plate. Why didn't you listen to your father?" "Sister, I'm calling you sister. Please stop. There must be some misunderstanding between us. In fact, the purpose of my visit is not only to admire Brother Long Yuan, but also to admire you. I've long heard that there's a royal-grade alchemist in Western Liang. Not only is her alchemy skills incredible, but she is also a fairy who has descended to the mortal world. Now that I've met you today, you really live up to your reputation. My admiration for you is endless. Please allow me to bow to you 3 times to express my excitement." Bang! 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 Tian Daluo bent down and hit his head on the crotch of his pants. He kowtowed 3 times. This caused everyone present to be stunned. Tian Daluo, who was extremely domineering just a moment ago, was terrified again. This scene also surprised Xin Qiue. This person didn't have the face of an Emperor Realm expert at all. All right, I've finished my 3 kowtows. Let's get down to business. In fact, I don't have any ill intentions toward Qiangbin. In fact, I admire you very much. How can I be his enemy? This is all because my father, Tian Shulin, is a fool. He got the wrong target for revenge. Qiangbin is definitely not our enemy. Qin Hao and his family were the real people. Therefore, this is a feud between the Tian family and the Qin family. It has nothing to do with the academy. Please don't interfere, sister, Tian Daluo said shamelessly. His expression was extremely pleading, and there was even a hint of flattery. The person standing in front of him was a real royal-grade alchemist. Moreover, she was a stage 7 royal-grade alchemist. She was much more powerful than the deputy mansion master of the Zhanyue mansion. As an Emperor Realm expert, it was extremely difficult for Tian Daluo to break through each level. Only the pills refined by a royal-grade alchemist could help his cultivation. Therefore, his flattery was absolutely sincere. It couldn't be any more sincere. F*CK. What a shameless person. The great elder of the Zhanyue mansion is nothing more than this. The weak are afraid of the strong. At first, he said that he wanted to challenge Emperor Longyuan. Later, when Emperor Longyuan revealed his cultivation, he was so scared that he pissed his pants. Then, he said that it was a competition between academies. In the end, when Headmaster Qiang stepped forward, this child turned it into a battle between families. He's extremely shameless. Tian Daluo's behavior disappointed the leaders of Western Liang. Everyone present was a reputable figure. Today's incident would most likely spread throughout Western Liang and even to the northern borderline. Tian Daluo was utterly humiliated. He would not be able to face anyone in the future. Howard, what should we do now? Qin Shilong panicked. He was so anxious that he trembled. Tian Daluo was too smart. He avoided Yu Longyuan and Qi Yang and directed his hatred toward the Qin family. The person with the highest cultivation in the Qin family was the old demon. It was impossible for any Emperor Realm expert to step forward. How could they resist Tian Daluo? Don't worry, Grandpa Qin. My father and mother won't let him do as he pleases. At this moment, Yi Shuihan stepped forward and said, No. Since Tian Daluo is picking on the Qin family, we'll take him on. Qin Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He had long wanted to fight Tian Daluo to the death, and he had a trump card. However, his brother was too powerful. He had dragged Headmaster Qi Yang and Yi Longyuan into this matter. It took him a lot of effort. Otherwise, Tian Daluo would have died a long time ago. At this moment, Qin Hao would no longer let the royal family interfere. He would not rely on Qi Yang as his backer. Young man, are you out of your mind? Did you see Tian Daluo's sudden change in attitude, or did you fall into his trap? Without me to protect the Qin family, what's the difference between you and the Qin family? Xin Qiue could not help but reprimand him. If it were not for Yi Shuihan and Yao Lao, she would not have bothered to intervene. However, she wanted to intervene now, but Qin Hao did not appreciate her kindness. Old Annie, stand back. We'll find out who's going to die soon. Come on, Tian Daluo. As you wish, it has nothing to do with national boundaries or sect. This is a battle between the Qin family and the Tian family. Qin Hao gave everyone a look that said, don't worry. He had a way to deal with Tian Daluo. Even so, Qin Shilong's heart skipped a beat. He was so nervous that he could not breathe. His heartstrings were about to snap. Qin Hao was a weak king stage cultivator. He was courting death by fighting with an emperor stage cultivator. Mother. Yi Shuihan tugged at the corner of Xin Qiue's clothes with a pleading look on his face. Don't worry. If Qin Hao dares to talk big and is in danger, I'll stop him at the last moment. Xin Qiue rubbed Yi Shuihan's face lovingly. All her attention was on her son. Chapter 821. With regards to this battle, 99% of the people believe that Qin Hao was like a moth flying into a flame, seeking his own destruction. In the Zhanyue Mansion's team, Cascade Blade had already made a wager with Murong Zishui. Zishui, how many moves do you think Qin Hao will take for my master? Cascade Blade was close to Murong Zishui in private, so he called him by his name directly. Even an idiot can see that Qin Hao will be killed by Elder Tian in one move. Do you mean I'm not even an idiot? Murong Zishui was quite angry. No, I didn't mean that. But I think Master won't kill Qin Hao in one move. He will definitely torture him cruelly. I'll bet 2 pieces of 1,000-year-old rock candy. Okay, I'll bet 2 pieces of 1,000-year-old rock candy. Murong Zishui gritted his teeth and agreed. It seemed that the 1,000-year-old rock candy they were talking about was very extraordinary. The other elders said one after another. Let's also bet how long the first elder will torture Qin Hao. I bet 1 day. I bet 2 days. I bet 3 days. The bet is 1,000-year-old rock candy. Do you dare to bet? When these arrogant words reached the ears of the Qin family and the disciples of the Red Sun sect, they were extremely angry. Qin Hao's life was only worth a piece of rock candy? He was looking down on him. While speaking, Tian Daiyuo pointed at Qin Hao and said sarcastically, "Did you hear that, boy? Your life is only worth a piece of rock candy. However, none of them can win. I will use an even crueler method to make you wish you were dead." Haha, is that so? But I don't think a piece of trash like you can do that. Qin Hao said seriously. Trash? Tian Daiyuo's eyes were about to spurt blood when he heard that. This was the 3rd time he had heard that. Yilong Yuan called him trash, Xinque called him trash, and now Qin Hao also dared to call him trash. The first 2 were qualified to call him trash, but Qin Hao didn't. Very well, you've once again challenged my bottom line and successfully angered me. When I execute you, I'll make my methods 1,000 times crueler. Tian Daiyuo was so angry that his face turned green. As he spoke, he made a move. A surge of emperor-level aura rose. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Hao stopped him. You little piece of trash have successfully angered me. It's too late to beg for mercy now. Even if you kneel down and call me father, I won't spare your dog life. Tian Daiyuo's tone was unquestionable. Who the hell begged you to spare my life? You wish. However, I'm afraid that when the battle starts later, someone will try to destroy it. Why don't we let Uncle Long Yuan and our headmaster work together to lay down an isolation barrier, and we can fight to the death in the barrier? At this time, Qin Hao looked at Long Yuan and Xinque. Ha ha! This was a good suggestion, and Tian Daiyuo laughed maniacally. Brat, you're really determined to die. Actually, I'm more worried about this than you are. That's great. He immediately agreed. This was a brilliant suggestion. In fact, he was really afraid that Long Yuan and Xinque would suddenly attack him during the battle and stop him from killing Qin Hao. If the 2 of them were to lay down an isolation barrier, it would take Long Yuan and Xinque a few seconds to break it. That was enough time for Tian Daiyuo to do whatever he wanted. Brat, you're digging your own grave. Xinque was so angry that she sneered at Qin Hao. Brat, have you thought about it? They're obviously trying to cut off your last chance of survival. Long Yuan said solemnly. Yes, I've thought about it. Please help me. Qin Hao cupped his hands and said, cut off his own chance of survival. No. In fact, Qin Hao was afraid that Tian Daiyuo would run away. If he laid down an isolation barrier in advance, this old brat would definitely die. First Elder, I think that Qin brat is playing dirty. Don't fall into his trap. What if one of the elders of the Zhanyue mansion was very worried and could not help but remind him? However, he was interrupted by Tian Daiyuo. Tian Daiyuo was furious. He turned around and shouted, Do you mean that I, an emperor, can't defeat a trash Yuan king? Are you looking down on me? No, First Elder. I wouldn't dare. I just think, all right, stop talking. If you dare to talk too much, I think you don't have to be the 6th Elder anymore. When I return, I'll immediately ask the mansion master to remove you from your position. Tian Daiyuo replied impatiently. In an instant, the 6th Elder was so scared that he did not dare to say another word. 6th Elder, you're really old. How can Qin Hao defeat my master? Why don't you give me the position of Elder when you return? The house killer also sneered. In response, the 6th Elder snorted coldly. In the next second, Yi Longyuan and Xin Qiue acted decisively. A layer of dazzling golden barrier rose from the ground and covered the heads of Qin Hao and Tian Daluo. The barrier stood in the air like half an eggshell. It was so sturdy that it made everyone feel as if they were facing a steel wall. Looking at the barrier above his head, Qin Hao nodded in satisfaction. Tian Daluo also raised his head to take a look. With a smile on his face, he thought to himself, the combination of the 8th and 7th level primitive emperors is indeed extraordinary. Even if the prefecture master were to come here personally, it would be hard for him to break it, let alone me. Qin Hao is so stupid to have locked himself in a coffin. Ha! Tian Daluo couldn't help but laugh out loud. Following that, he let out a wild roar. Golden flames rose from his body, and his aura blasted toward Qin Hao. He stretched out his hand and pressed down on Qin Hao's head. I've said it before. Even if I have no feelings for Tian Boguang, he is still a tool that I created. How dare you kill him? The man that I created will be killed. Then, I will extract your soul and bring it back to the northern borderline. I will store it in the myriad poison blood bottle and refine it. I will make you suffer every moment, and you will never be able to reincarnate. This is the consequence of going against me, Tian Daluo. Die. Even though they were separated by the barrier, everyone could still feel the earth-shattering power and Tian Daluo's monstrous anger. When the palm came down, it was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Father, mother, quickly removed the barrier. Yi Shuihan was shocked. Qin Shilong fell to the ground. He was out of his wits, and his eyes were empty. He felt that the palm was not going to kill Qin Hao, but the entire Qin family. Unfortunately, it was too late for Yi Longyuan and Xin Qiue to stop it. The barrier was set up by their combined efforts and could withstand a full blow from a peak stage origin emperor. Slap! At this moment of extreme anxiety, suddenly, the crisp sound of a slap came from the inside of the barrier and spread to the outside in an instant. Everyone suddenly saw that Tian Daluo, who was charging toward Qin Hao, was stopped in his tracks. It was not that he was being kind and did not choose to attack. Instead, it was because a young girl as beautiful as a fairy had unknowingly appeared in front of him. The young girl appeared like a ghost and slapped Tian Daluo's face, causing him to lose consciousness. The young girl was Empress Siwei, Mu Yue. She had been shot by the Sunset Divine Arrow for 600 years, and her physical body was extremely weak. During the battle in the Imperial Mausoleum, she had exhausted the power of her sovereign spirit and fell into a deep sleep. However, Qin Hao had borrowed half of the sovereign spirit's power from the Medicine Valley's Beast Arch. Since the old Beast Arch was about to die, he did not want to waste the resources. Then, a small part of the sovereign spirit's power became his core mystic cultivation base. Qin Hao used most of it to awaken Wei Wei. Moreover, his awakening was very successful. Chapter 822. Who is that? The people outside were shocked. They couldn't help but exclaim at Mu Yue's beauty and temperament. She's really beautiful. Xin Qiue was in a daze. As someone who valued beauty the most, she immediately paled in comparison to Vivian, who was inside the enchantment. Not only in terms of appearance, but also in terms of temperament. Moreover, even I didn't see how she attacked Tian Daluo. Yi Longyuan exclaimed in disbelief. His eyes were wide open. His cultivation was the highest among everyone present. However, Vivian suddenly appeared, and her speed was so fast that he couldn't see her. He couldn't be sure if Vivian's strength was above his, but Yi Longyuan was very sure of one thing. That was, Vivian's mastery of martial arts was 1,000 times better than his. This was extremely terrifying. The moment Mu Yue appeared, she immediately attracted countless gazes and became the only focus of everyone present. Everyone craned their necks and stared at her without blinking. The members of the Qin family were also in a daze. Qin Shilong and the others had never seen Mu Yue before. Xing Er's appearance had already surprised them. Since when did such a strong girl appear beside Qin Hao? On the other hand, Qin Hao was relaxed. He took out a chair from his spatial ring and sat inside the barrier. He even took out a handful of sunflower seeds and ate them lazily. He didn't need to intervene in the following battle. This was because Vivian was going to end everything for Tian Daluo. "Who are you?" Tian Daluo was stunned for a few seconds, but he immediately regained his senses and shouted. He did see how Mu Yue appeared. She turned into smoke and flew out from Qin Hao's spatial ring. However, he also didn't see how Mu Yue attacked. In short, she was fast, ruthless, and accurate. Qin Hao's woman. Mu Yue was as calm as a puddle of water, as if she was talking about something natural. After she finished speaking, there was an explosion. Raging golden flames appeared around her body. The strength of the golden flames caused Tian Daluo to stumble backward, and the enchantment that enveloped the sky trembled. Vivian was currently relying on half of the beast the Arca's strength. Therefore, even though she was also in Yuan Emperor powerhouse, she could only exert the strength of a second-stage Yuan Emperor at most. It wasn't that her cultivation had regressed, but that her body was lacking in vitality. She needed to recuperate for a long time before she could return to her peak state. Even if he could only unleash the strength of a level 2 primitive emperor, it would be more than enough to kill Tian Daluo. Rumble. As soon as she finished speaking, the members of the Qin family all fell to the ground. Qin Hao's woman? An emperor-level expert? Oh my god, it was really too exciting. 18 generations of ancestors were smoking green smoke. In other words, she was Qin Shilong's granddaughter-in-law and Qin Laoxi's niece-in-law. But Qin Hao's wife should be Xiao Han. When did he hook up with another girl? Wasn't this a little unfair to little Xiao? Although Vivian's cultivation level was very high and the Qin family was very proud of her, they still felt that it wasn't right. Tian Daluo didn't have the time to think about this. He was extremely humiliated. As a level 3 primitive emperor, he was slapped by a level 2 primitive emperor. Moreover, the person who slapped him was Qin Hao's woman. This was simply unforgivable. "My wife is enough to take care of you." Qin Hao replied immediately. The bond between him and Vivian had dragged on for 600 years. Now that the girl had taken the initiative to say it, he wouldn't be a man if he didn't admit it. "You're courting death." Tian Daluo was extremely humiliated. He released his emperor-level aura and slashed down fiercely with his palm. With a swoosh, a half-moon-shaped golden flame aura appeared. This flame aura slashed vertically across the sky and landed on Vivian's head, shining brightly. Vivian looked up with slight disdain. Then, a quaint long sword appeared in her hand. Her slender fingers stroked the body of the sword as she shouted with the majesty of an empress, "Graceful sword." Swoosh! A sword shadow flew out of the long sword and swept across the field. No one could see the power of profound meaning contained in the sword shadow. Yilong Yuan couldn't either. Graceful sword was Qin Hao's signature move. At the same time, it was also Vivian's best skill. It was the sharpest sword technique developed by the two of them based on the sword drawing technique. It was a high-grade, heaven-grade sword technique. As one's cultivation level improved, the power of the sword technique increased exponentially. Now that Vivian, an emperor-level cultivator, was using this technique, it couldn't be viewed with common sense. It could only be described as a divine technique. Screech. Along with this, a huge phantom of a phoenix followed the sword light and flew toward the flame aura, slashing down. Bang! It broke the flame aura, slashing down, and continued to attack Tian Daluo without slowing down. High-grade, heaven-grade sword technique. How is this possible? Tian Daluo could tell at a glance and was horrified. There were heaven-grade techniques on the continent, but most of them were in the hands of emperor-level cultivators. They were their signature techniques and were never taught to outsiders. For example, the supreme martial arts technique of the Zhanyue Mansion was a set of low-tier heaven-grade cultivation techniques. Only the mansion master was qualified to learn it. This cultivation technique was passed down by Emperor Yuan of the sect, and it was the most precious treasure of the sect. He didn't expect Qin Hao's woman to have a heaven-grade supreme sword technique. Tian Daluo's flame aura slashing was merely a high-grade, earth-grade technique. I could block it. I'll kill you within 3 moves. Vivian said coldly as she watched the sword light flying toward Tian Daluo. As the most powerful Emperor Yuan of the continent, he was naturally confident in killing a low-level Origin Emperor. As she spoke, Vivian looked back at Qin Hao with a smile. Qin Hao spread his hands and shrugged his shoulders. His eyes seemed to be saying, "The power of the sword is not strong enough. It seems that you are not much stronger than me, even after 600 years." Vivian wasn't angry. Instead, her expression became more serious. In her heart, her husband was always right. Since he said that the sword technique was not strong enough, then she must have not handled it well when she attacked. You guys are flirting with each other and throwing dog food at each other. You are really bullying me. It's just a heaven-grade sword technique. Don't be too arrogant. Take my thunder shield. Although Tian Daluo was shocked, he wasn't afraid. As the flame aura slashing through the flame aura slashing through, lightning surged from his palms. Lightning was the power of Tian Daluo's origin soul. The lightning origin soul was one of the top ones on the continent's origin soul list. Compared to flames, lightning was more penetrative and destructive. Kacha! Tian Daluo pushed his palms forward with all his might. The dense lightning in front of him intertwined to form a spiderweb-like defensive shield. However, when a majestic phoenix swung its sword at him, the power of Tian Daluo's source spirit that he was so confident in was destroyed with a loud bang. The sword light didn't disappear. It went straight for his head. Fortunately, Tian Daluo dodged in time and managed to keep his life. Even so, there was a ghastly sword scar on his face. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. So strong, Tian Daluo launched 2 consecutive attacks, but he still couldn't block her sword. The heaven-class sword technique is so powerful. The beautiful girl who used this technique abandoned her dignity as an emperor and followed Qin Hao, a weak Yuan king. Why don't I have such good luck? While they were shocked, many of the young men were envious and jealous. At this moment, Qin Shilong laughed heartily. He laughed from ear to ear. He didn't care about his status and pointed at Vivian, who was inside the barrier. He loudly boasted to the heroes of Shiliang. "Do you see that? That is my Qin family's daughter-in-law. She is my grandson's daughter-in-law. This sword technique. She actually used this sword technique. Who exactly is she?" Compared to Qin Shilong's bragging, Xian Kiyue was surprised. Her Dangu was actually from the New Moon sect. New Moon sect was one of the 4 disciples of Qin Hao in his previous life. She was on par with Zhang Lang and the rest. The sword technique was passed down from generation to generation by the leaders of New Moon sect. However, there was only the name of the sword. There was no manual, and no one could figure out the theory behind it. Chapter 823. Damn it! Tian Shulin wiped off the blood on his cheek and flew into a rage. The lethality of Mu Yue's sword had seriously exceeded his imagination. His opponent's realm was 1 level lower than his. He had used 2 moves and even used the power of his soul for the second move, but he still couldn't block her sword. Rage of the Thunder Dragon. Tian Shulin raised his hands and no longer held back, releasing his strongest move. The golden essence energy around his body surged violently, and a large amount of lightning crackled and flashed. His body quickly spun on the spot. As he spun, a twisted hurricane rose from the ground and reached a height of 1,000 meters. It was incomparably vast and was about to touch the top of the barrier. My master once killed a 4th-stage primitive emperor with this move. Qin Hao's woman will definitely die. Qin Dao clenched his fist and roared confidently. The elders of the Zhanyue mansion nodded in agreement. They had all witnessed that battle, and then Tian Shulin was promoted to the Grand Elder. Even a 4th-stage primitive emperor couldn't block it, and the girl inside the barrier was only a 2nd-stage primitive emperor. It was impossible for her to block it. Finally, it looks like it. Well, don't underestimate this move of his. He probably used about 30% of his lightning power. Qin Hao sat on the chair with his legs crossed, leisurely eating sunflower seeds and analyzing for Mu Yue. Can't even withstand a single blow. Mu Yue was disappointed when she heard it. She and Qin Hao were the most powerful emperors in the continent. Their understanding of essence, souls, and martial arts was far from what ordinary people could compare to. Tian Dayuo used all his strength, but he could only use 30% of his lightning power. Compared to the lightning masters they had killed in the past, he was really weak. Because Vivian's control of her sword skills was as high as 180%. Qin Hao was even more abnormal. Although he was a Dendi, he could use 200% of his sword skills. Phoenix Soaring Slash. While speaking, Mu Yue used the second move of the Crepe Myrtle Heavenly Rainbow Sword. An even more majestic Divine Phoenix flew out from under the sword. Compared to the illusory Divine Phoenix at the beginning, the Divine Phoenix that attacked with the second move had two balls of dazzling light on its wings. They were like two sharp blades that could cut through the world and were unstoppable. Pum! At this moment, the hurricane that Tian Dayuo had created suddenly exploded. A ferocious and terrifying dragon suddenly flew out. The dragon was covered in lightning and roared endlessly. In the blink of an eye, the Divine Phoenix and the Thunder Dragon collided in the air. The earth-shattering roar penetrated the barrier and spread to the outside. The soldiers and martial artists in the field fell to the ground one after another, blood flowing out of their ears. Following that, a tattered figure fell into the spirit formation. It was Tian Dayuo. Half of his noble clothes were torn, and his chest was covered with spiderweb-like scars. It was a tragic sight. The thunder dragon that he had transformed from his source spirit had been shattered by the wings of the Nine Heavens Divine Phoenix. He had lost. How is this possible? Tian Dayuo's eyes were filled with fear, and he no longer had the dignity of an expert. Never would he have thought that as a third-level Origin Emperor, he would be one level higher than the other party and even possess an Origin soul. However, she was no match for a woman beside Qin Hao. He felt that Mu Yue, who was standing in front of him, was as strong as Yilong Yuan and was unshakable. This did not mean that the other party had concealed her cultivation level. Mu Yue was only a second-level Origin Emperor, and this was an indisputable fact. The strange thing was that the power contained in her sword technique was too terrifying. It was definitely not something that an Origin Emperor expert could produce. I've said that I will kill you in 3 moves. There is still one more. Although Mu Yue's figure was petite, she stood there like a mountain. She relied on the power of the Bestiarcha's ordinary Emperor soul and was successfully awakened by Qin Hao. However, she could clearly feel that the Origin Qi in her body was rapidly depleting. She could not delay any longer. Suddenly, an even more turbulent sword Qi gushed out from Vivian's body. The power caused a lot of cracks to appear on the ground. The cracks were like ravines that penetrated the spirit formation and extended to the outside. No! Tian Dayuo let out a shrill cry. He stood up with all his might and shouted, "Lady, please wait. Please listen to old man. In fact, my only enemy is Qin Hao. He killed my son. I only want him dead. This has nothing to do with the Qin family. I will be magnanimous and let the others go. Do you have any shame?" Mu Yue interrupted him directly. "My husband killed your son. It is natural for you to help your son. Are you saying that it has nothing to do with me that you came to kill my husband? What kind of logic is this? You are an Origin Emperor. Hurry up and die." One had to admit that Tian Dayuo's ability to quibble was top-notch. However, he was immediately despised by the crowd. At this moment, even the elders of the Zhanyue mansion were so ashamed that they wanted to dig a hole in the ground. How could I, Yilong Yuan, meet such a useless person when I was young? Yilong Yuan spat on the ground in disgust. Qin Hao, you are a big piece of trash. You only know how to hide behind women. You are a piece of trash, a useless person. If you have the ability, come out and fight with me. I will beat you until you are looking for your teeth on the ground. Tian Shulin's plot did not succeed. He began to use provocation to attack Qin Hao's dignity and force him to show himself. This was actually within Qin Hao's expectations. Beat me until I am confused? Fine, I will give you this opportunity. In fact, I have specially left a gift for you to help you die. Qin Hao patted the melon seed crumbs in his hand and stood up. Then, under the gaze of everyone, he took out an arrow that was emitting a blood-red light. When the arrow appeared, even though it was separated by the barrier, it still made people feel a chill and terror. That is, setting sun. Looking at the arrow in Qin Hao's hand, Exinque was so shocked that she almost cried out. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. As a descendant of the New Moon sect, how could she not know that it was the setting sun arrow, which belonged to Dendi Daqin of the East Continent? The blood-red arrow was also the first of the setting sun arrows. Once the arrow was shot, blood would be spilled. Could it be that Qin Hao was that person back then? At this moment, a bold guess had appeared in Exinque's mind. Then, she became even more excited. The New Moon sect had waited for 600 years. Just as the patriarch had predicted, that person had finally returned. Qin Hao. In the barrier, Mu Yue saw Qin Hao take out the setting sun arrow, and her face was filled with worry. Qin Hao's cultivation was still shallow. If he used the setting sun mantra too much, his body would not be able to bear it. Don't worry. You are here, aren't you? Qin Hao smiled silently. He reached out his big hand and stroked Wei Wei's delicate face. He needed her help. Otherwise, even if he had the setting sun arrow, he might not be able to kill Tian Daluo. Understand. Mu Yue nodded her small head. Then, she threw the quaint long sword in her hand. The Emperor's sword, which was called Yang Shui, spun in the air and emitted a sacred light. In the light, the Yang Shui was pulled longer and longer by a force. Finally, it turned into a transparent silver thread that was as thin as a hair. It stood in front of Qin Hao. Heaven and earth as the bow, Yang Shui as the string. Tian Daluo, do you dare to take my arrow? Chapter 824. As Mu Yue continued to inject her primordial qi into Qin Hao's aura was also rising steadily. Even though his cultivation level did not change, this force allowed him to draw the bowstring bit by bit. With every inch he drew, Qin Hao could see that he was having a hard time. When the bowstring was 100 meters away and formed a half-moon shape, Qin Hao's sleeves exploded. The skin on his arms was also shaken and blood dripped down. However, he did not care at all. He focused all his attention on Tian Daluo. As the bowstring was drawn, a gust of wind suddenly blew in the academy. The day was swallowed by darkness, and a large red crack appeared in the sky. It was as terrifying as the magma in a volcano. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Yilong Yuan, open the barrier. Open this damn barrier now. As the great elder of the Zhanyuan mansion in the northern borderline, I order you to open it now. Facing such a terrifying scene, Tian Daluo could not judge the power of the arrow, but he could feel the strong aura of death. He did not dare to take the arrow. He screamed crazily and ran around in panic. He ran at his maximum speed, dodging here and there like a frightened wild donkey. He did not give Qin Hao a chance to aim. If it were not for the barrier, he would have run away. I'm sorry. Setting up the barrier consumed all my cultivation. I don't have the energy to open it now. Yilong Yuan said with a straight face. Xinque was the same. Everyone could see that Qin Hao's attack was very powerful. The outcome of the battle was about to be decided. He could not let Tian Daluo out at this time. The person trapped in the barrier was not Qin Hao. Tian Daluo, an Emperor Realm expert, was placed in a coffin. At this moment, Tian Daluo was full of regret. Long Yuan, listen to me. We grew up together. Blood is thicker than water. Luo Shui, if I die, can you bear the anger of the Zhanyuan mansion and the Great Yin dynasty? As long as you let me out, I can pretend that nothing happened. I will not take revenge. In fact, I think Tian Buguang is an inferior product that I made. It's better if he dies. Let me out now. As Tian Daluo shouted, he was still blinking madly. Unfortunately, no matter how fast he dodged or where he dodged to, Qin Hao's sovereign level mind power was able to predict his movements. Yilong Yuan, Open the barrier immediately and release our great elder. Otherwise, the Zhanyuan mansion in Beijiang will declare war on Luo Shui. We will destroy your family and turn Luo Shui into a living hell." The elder of the Zhanyuan manor anxiously threatened. Yilan Yuan did not care about Tian Daluo at all. Judging from his attitude, he had acquiesced to Qin Hao killing Tian Daluo. "Yilan Yuan, you're just a little dog emperor. How dare you recklessly murder the sect elders of Great Yin sect? As the Prince of Qianzhou, I order you to open the barrier immediately." Murong Zijuan also started to panic. Scram! Yilan Yuan could not take it anymore. With a sweep of his sleeve, Murong Zijuan immediately rolled out like a tortoise shell. Along the way, he bumped into something and spat out a few broken teeth. "You're just a prince who deserves a beating. I'm afraid that even if your elder brother, the crown prince, or your father were here, you wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. Declare war? All right, Luo Shui has never been afraid of anyone," Yilan Yuan declared domineeringly. He then pointed to the barrier and said, "Qin Hao, kill Tian Daluo and the entire Western Liang. The martial artists of Western Liang will support you." "Roar, kill!" Luo Shui's soldiers roared. "Kill!" The disciples of Qiyang sect roared. "Kill!" The third-rate sect, led by Tai Wanli, roared. "Kill!" All the Yuan venerate powerhouses, led by Yao Lao, roared. At this moment, even the sect masters invited by Tian Shulin roared excitedly. Should the people of Western Liang be inferior? Did they deserve to be bullied by Beijiang? Everyone had dignity, and martialists were even more unyielding. When their unyielding character and unyielding character were stimulated, they would turn into crazy beasts. Western Liang was weak. However, it was also the most united land among the four great weaves. It was precisely because it was weak that they were united. Everyone understood the principle of interdependence. If the Great Yin dared to invade, Luo Shui's main forces, Western Wei, Western Zhao, Sky Dragon Nation, and the newly established Western Qin Empire, would unite as one against a common enemy. "Grandson, kill that arrogant bastard for me. Show him the power of the Qin family. I'll F***CK his ancestors." Qin Shilong was so agitated that he started to speak incoherently amidst the cheers of hundreds of thousands of people. "You bunch of lowly pigs and dogs. You will pay the price for this. I want Western Liang to be destroyed." Tian Daluo was in despair. He saw Qin Hao pull the bowstring into a full moon. Even though Qin Hao was covered in blood, even though Mu Yue was on the verge of collapsing in order to provide vitality to Qin Hao. However, this arrow was about to leave his hand. Boom! At the critical moment, Tian Daluo pulled out a platinum jade slip from his crotch, crushed it painfully, and threw it toward the barrier. The moment the platinum jade slip left his hand, it shone brightly. Under the dark sky, it was extremely dazzling. Accompanied by a loud sound, the jade slip came into contact with the barrier and exploded. A surge of turbulent energy spread out and bombarded the barrier. Yilan Yuan, an 8th-stage primitive emperor, and Xian Qiue, a 7th-stage primitive emperor, had joined hands to set up the enchantment. However, the enchantment was like a fragile piece of paper that was destroyed and turned into smoke. This surge of energy swept out and swept away everyone present. If it weren't for Yilan Yuan and Xian Qiue stopping it in time, not many people would have survived. Then, Yilan Yuan and Xian Qiue spat out a mouthful of red blood on the ground. They were severely injured by the aftermath of the shock. The power of Emperor Yuan. Yilan Yuan was half kneeling. His elegant silk robe had become tattered. He covered his chest and looked at Xian Qiue. Both of them were shocked. They didn't expect Tian Daluo to have a life-saving jade slip given by Emperor Yuan. This jade slip broke the barrier and allowed Tian Daluo to use teleportation to escape. Trying to escape? It's not that easy. At this moment, a majestic roar sounded. Amidst the dust and smoke, a blood-red arrow pierced through the air and chased in the direction where Tian Daluo escaped. Qin Hao's emperor-grade spiritual power covered a wide area. Even if Tian Daluo tore through space and escaped, he would still be captured from afar. Immediately after, the arrow flew out. Its speed could no longer be described with words. Wherever it passed, space collapsed and heaven and earth shook. Finally, an explosion sounded from the boundary between the western Liang and the northern frontier in the distance. Then a mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Everyone could clearly hear Tian Daluo's tragic cries when the explosion rang out. He must have been hit by the attack. What a pity! After the smoke and dust dissipated, Qin Hao's figure was revealed. He was still floating in the air. His white robe was in tatters. After saying that, he fell down. He had exhausted too much energy and sensed that the arrow couldn't kill Tian Daluo. His realm was too low. At such a long distance, he couldn't control the arrow accurately. Even so, one of Tian Daluo's legs was broken. Chapter 825. Following this, a red shadow flew back from the horizon and entered Qin Hao's spatial ring in the blink of an eye. It was a scarlet blood arrow. The arrowhead was filled with warm blood, flesh, and clothes. Just as Qin Hao had guessed, it had pierced through Tian Daluo's thigh bone. Disciple, how's your injury? Dan Xian and the other members of the Qin family walked over anxiously and asked with concern. However, they did not dare to get too close. Obviously, they were afraid of Mu Yue. I'm fine. I'm just a little exhausted. Qin Hao forced a smile and then looked at the elders of the Severing Moon Mansion with a straight face. Tian Daluo had escaped. However, these people did not manage to slip away in time. There were 3 of them in total, and all of them were Yuan venerates. You, what are you trying to do? Some of them stared at Qin Hao in fear and panic. At this moment, Shun Tianfeng, Yao Lao, and the others all surrounded him. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. Qin Hao waved his hand indifferently. Since he had formed a grudge with the Severing Moon Mansion, there was no reason not to kill them. Little bastard, how dare you? We are elders of the Severing Moon Mansion. You have no right to punish us. Aren't you afraid of our sex revenge? The 3 of them retreated in horror and even threatened him. It was not that they did not want to escape, but that they could not. With Yi Long Yuan's emperor-level expert holding the line, the chances of tearing space were negative. What are you waiting for? Kill them all, Yi Long Yuan said. He agreed with Qin Hao's approach. He would not show mercy even when dealing with Tian Daluo, let alone a few low-level elders. The other party wanted revenge. Let the Severing Moon Mansion master do it. Yi Long Yuan took the lead. With a sweep of his palm, 3 emperor-level Yuan Qi blasted into their chests, half crippling them and causing them to spit out blood and fall to the ground. Then, the old demon, Shun Tianfeng, and Yao Lao each showed their unique skills. Before the other party could react, they had already killed them all. One of them was even refined into a pool of blood by the old demon's hat. Ha! Tian Shulin laughed miserably. Originally, he thought that today would be his most glorious day. His glory would become the most beautiful scenery in Western Liang. He never thought that his unbreakable allies would fall apart and abandon him one after another. The proud son also fled in a sorry state. Now, he was the only one left, and there was still the hatred in his heart that could never be avenged. Tian Buguang was nothing to Tian Daluo, but to Tian Shulin, he was the one who brought him up. I've given you countless chances, and I've even warned you about this. But in the end, you still ushered in the end. This is your end. Yao Lao stared coldly at Tian Shulin. Yao Chun, do it. Please leave me with my last shred of dignity and let me die in your hands instead of letting that little bastard Qin Hao kill me. He doesn't have the qualifications. Tian Shulin closed his eyes and gave up resisting. Did he regret it? For Tian Buguang's sake, he did not regret it. Do you hate him? He hated Qin Hao, but not Tian Daluo, because he knew that where there was life, there was hope. Tian Daluo's decision to run away was a wise one. Even if he was defeated today, it was not certain who would have the last laugh in the end. Qin Hao, You will die in the hands of our Tian family sooner or later. Old man will wait for you in hell. I will wait for you to die. Ha ha ha. Tian Shulin cursed. Puff. Yao Lao threw out a palm light, and a head soared into the sky. At this moment, all the disciples of the Star Moon sect could not help but lower their heads and begin to mourn. Tian Shulin was, after all, the president and a former hero. Unfortunately, he went to the extreme, and all this was because he was an enemy of Qin Hao. There was a scream. Murong Zishuai was so scared that his face turned pale when he saw Tian Shulin and the people of the Zhanyue mansion being killed one after another. You are so cruel and inhumane. How dare you attack the noble people of the Yin Kingdom? You must be tired of living. I will make you regret it. I swear that you will. He was scared out of his wits. Relying on his identity as the prince of the Yin Kingdom, he boldly shouted. He was different from the elders of the Zhanyue mansion, so Yi Longyuan definitely did not dare to touch him. The fact was that if he killed Murong Zishuai, it would undoubtedly mean that Luo Shui had completely fallen out with the Northern Yin Kingdom. There was no way out. What should we do, Your Highness? At this time, Jiang Zhengxiong and his brother looked at Yi Shuihan. The prince's status was too high. It was not easy to deal with him. Although we can't kill him, we can still beat him until his mother can't recognize him. I really don't understand how much the Emperor of the Northern Yin Kingdom hates his son. He deserves to be beaten by others. Take off his clothes, take away his space ring, and throw him into the wilderness. As he spoke, Yi Shuihan personally took action. He stepped forward and tore off Murong Zishuai's clothes with a ripping sound. Immediately, his white skin was exposed in front of everyone. Everyone widened their eyes and pointed at Murong Zishuai in amazement. His skin was whiter and more tender than a woman's. Murong Zishuai had lived like a prince and had never been humiliated like this. He was so angry that his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Next, Jiang Zhengxiong directly carried the naked prince of the Northern Yin Kingdom, circled around Luo Shui's imperial city, and then threw him into the deep mountains and forests. Murong Zishuai had no cultivation at all. He was completely an ordinary person. After losing the elders of the Zhanyue mansion, his space ring, and his clothes, even if he could survive, it would probably take him decades to return to the Northern Yin Kingdom. Maybe his father would be dead by then. After dealing with the elders of the Zhanyue mansion and Murong Zishuai, Qin Hao walked toward Qiandao. He still remembered how arrogant the other party was. At that time, Qiandao pointed at Qin Hao's nose and said, I just want to kill you, or be killed by you. Well, Qin Hao is here now. In fact, if Tian Daluo had not intervened, Qiandao would have been dead. Wait, Brother Hao. To tell you the truth, I'm here this time to admire your grace. I don't remember the mission that Tian Boguang and Murong Zijun gave me. I don't even know them. I only have eyes for Brother Hao. Brother Hao and Princess Jingyue are a match made in heaven. And I don't mind telling you, I have a brother named Qiandao, the chief disciple of the Zhanyue mansion. With my cultivation, I can't even withstand one move from him. Qin Hao did not want to listen to his nonsense. He took out the great void sword and stabbed Qiandao into a dead fish's eye. He did not learn Tan Daluo's skills, but he imitated the flattery of others to the point of perfection. It's over. Qin Hao looked up at the sky. After the battle, the sky was calm again, and a flock of birds flew by. The only fly in the ointment was that Tian Daluo had accidentally escaped, which was a disaster. However, Qin Hao would get rid of this disaster. After all, there was only 1 year left before the deadline with Shaohan. It was time to leave Western Liang and go to the northern borderline. But was all of this really over? It might be true for Qin Hao, but for Shun Tianfeng, it was definitely not. Shiren, come out. Chapter 826. Shen Tianfeng's judgment was right. Just as his consciousness spread out, a figure soared into the sky from the depths of the academy and turned into a streak of light that flew straight east. Yi Longyuan's eyes darkened as he reached out and clenched his fist. The figure that had already flown thousands of miles away was pulled back and landed heavily in front of everyone's feet. Qin Hao looked down and discovered that it was an old man with messy hair and dirty clothes. He was about the same age as Shun Tianfeng. Judging from the Yuan Qi that this person had used to escape, he was also a Yuan Venerate powerhouse. Furthermore, his cultivation was actually above Tian Shulin's. He was an 8th level Yuan Venerate. All the disciples of Star Moon Academy were shocked. No one had expected that there would be such a terrifying character hidden within the academy whose strength was above the chief dean's. Then who exactly was he? Many disciples were puzzled as they speculated. Shen Tianfeng pointed at the old man and said through gritted teeth, "Shirun, it's really you. I also didn't expect that you would not die and even attack Star Moon Academy." The old man called Shirun lifted his head and revealed a terrifying face. His face was covered with scars left behind by blades and swords, and his original appearance couldn't be seen clearly. In fact, his appearance had already been disfigured when Shun Tianfeng had saved him. Qin Hao stood to the side and watched silently, not interrupting. Although he didn't know Shirun, he had a feeling that Shirun knew him. While Shirun and Shin Tianfeng were talking, Shirun had been sizing up Qin Hao from the corner of his eye, not missing any detail. The look in his eyes was very strange. It was mixed with surprise, and there was also a strong sense of fear. Does this person know my background? Qin Hao suddenly had a bad premonition and subconsciously grabbed Wei Wei's hand. Why? At that moment, Shen Tianfeng grabbed Shirun by the neck and lifted him in front of everyone. Then, he whipped Shirun wildly in front of everyone and roared furiously. "Why did you secretly hurt me and cripple me before cruelly abandoning me in the Dark Night Forest and letting me suffer for decades? Do you still have conscience?" If not for Shun Tianfeng's help back then, Sunset Blade would have been killed. He took Shiren in at Starry Moon Academy and healed him. As time passed, Shun Tianfeng discovered that Shiren's martial arts attainments were extraordinary. Shen Tianfeng regretted not having met him sooner and gradually became close friends with him. Who would have thought that the other party would suddenly launch a sneak attack while he was comprehending the Sword Dao, causing Shun Tianfeng's meridians to be severed? Hearing Shun Tianfeng's description, everyone was enlightened and understood the ins and outs of the matter. This question has been stuck in my heart for decades. I just want to ask why. Shen Tianfeng roared. Why? Haha, don't tell me you don't know. Shen Tianfeng, you are too stupid. Sunset Blade let out a hoarse laugh and pointed at his back. There was a strange tattoo on his back. The subject of the tattoo was an incomparably huge sword. The sword was particularly dazzling. Even though it was just a picture, it made people feel a deep sense of fear. As he spoke, Sunset Blade took the initiative to tear his clothes, revealing his back. Suddenly, the huge sword that was filled with a domineering and cold aura was suddenly exposed. A monstrous, murderous aura surged, shocking the surrounding disciples so much that they could not help but retreat. It was as if the sword would suddenly fly out from Sunset Blade's back and chop off everyone's heads. As for this sword, it had an innate ability to intimidate people, an irresistible deterrent power. When Yilan Yuan saw this sword, he could not help but suddenly feel nervous. What? It's actually, at this moment, Mu Yue and Xan Qiyue exclaimed at the same time. They recognized this tattoo. In their impression, this tattoo was once a nightmarish existence. Naturally, Qin Hao also recognized this tattoo. He was more familiar with tattoos than anyone else in the world. This was because he had personally tattooed the first huge sword on Zhang Wu's back. It represented Zhang Wu's bravery and invincibility. Later, Zhang Wu formed a powerful force based on the tattoo. It was called the Battle Emperor's Imperial Guards, and now it was called the Battle God Imperial Guards. Sunset Blade was a member of the Battle God Imperial Guards. To be precise, he was a descendant of the Battle God Imperial Guards. Back then, when you were bandaging my wounds, you had already seen it. It's impossible that you did not know my identity. With your curiosity and vision, did you not investigate it in private? Actually, I am from the East Continent. Sunset Blade sneered. It was precisely because he was not from Western Liang that he wanted to silence everyone. He had to eliminate anyone who had seen the Battle God insignia. It did not matter if they were friends or enemies. Only a dead person could keep the secret of his battle god, Imperial Guards. He had a huge mission to complete. What kind of nonsense is this? I really do not know. Shun Tianfeng shook his head, unusually serious. In the days when he interacted with Sunset Blade, he guessed that he was not from Western Liang. But so what? He had always treated him as a friend. He had never investigated what that tattoo represented. As a friend, he chose to trust Sunset Blade. But Shun Tianfeng's sincerity was fed to the dogs. What did you say? Sunset Blade was a little shocked and said absent-mindedly, "Did you really not investigate my tattoo?" Ha! Shun Tianfeng laughed. His laughter was heroic, but it made one feel uncomfortable. What's the use of me investigating it? You want to kill me just for this thing? Ridiculous. It's really too ridiculous. Creak. Sunset Blade clenched his fists, his heart filled with mixed feelings. He suddenly realized that he had made a big mistake. He even did not dare to look at Shun Tianfeng's eyes. Actually, I sincerely treat you as a friend. I also want to drink wine and discuss the Tao with you, leisurely and ordinary in this lively academy. Unfortunately, I have the Imperial token and have no choice. Don't blame me. Sunset Blade's tone was extremely helpless. But suddenly, he raised his eyes and looked at Qin Hao's position. His turbid eyes revealed an incomprehensible excitement and ecstasy. In today's battle, he had seen Qin Hao and Mu Yue make a move. Graceful sword and sunset archery were the East Continent's Qin Emperor's signature moves. As a small chess piece that Zhang Wu had placed in the continent, Sunset Blade was responsible for the mission of searching for Denda's whereabouts. He had waited for this day for nearly 200 years. Although he knew that he would definitely die in the next second, he had finally waited. In other words, he had completed his mission, even if he could not send the message to the East Continent. You don't have to speak. I know what you want to ask. It's me. I've returned. I will take back everything that belongs to me. At that time, your so-called glory will eventually turn into sorrow. Qin Hao said coldly. With Mu Yue's support, the two of them slowly left. Under the light of the setting sun, the two of them left very long shadows. Haha, is that so? Then let's wait and see. May the Emperor's glory last forever. Chapter 827. The hot summer wind was dull and hot. Especially at noon, there was a lot of steam floating in the air. The world was like a hot oven, making people sweat while walking, unable to lift the slightest bit of spirit, and without the slightest bit of appetite. Luo Shui, Imperial City, Danga headquarters. On the square of the main hall stood two huge bronze statues, which were particularly eye-catching. One of them was kneeling on the ground with its hands tied behind its back. The bronze statue was covered in saliva, and in the hot and dry weather, it attracted swarms of flies to stick to it. The black mass looked extremely disgusting, and it even emitted a foul stench that reached the heavens. In front of the kneeling bronze statue, there was another statue, which looked very sacred. The second bronze statue was of a kind-looking old man. He had his hand behind his back, looking up at the sky, exuding an elegant aura. In front of him was a huge incense burner. The incense in the incense burner continued to burn, never extinguishing. Perhaps it was due to the hot weather, but the alchemists coming and going from the pill pavilion or the cultivators buying medicinal pills would spit out even more violently every time they walked past the first kneeling bronze statue. As they spat, they would curse nonstop. Of course, they did not forget the second bronze statue. When they came to the second statue, their fierce expressions would immediately turn into devout believers, holding the incense with both hands, respectfully inserting it into the incense burner, and then praying in their hearts. Ah, wise and mighty, great old senior, I hope you will bestow great fortune, and let the glory of young Master Qin Hao shine on my body, so that this little one can successfully advance to a fourth-grade alchemist. Some people prayed that they could smoothly advance to a higher-grade alchemist, and some prayed that they could break through the bottleneck of their cultivation. As for the merchants who came and went to wholesale pills, they prayed that they could make a lot of money this year. But without exception, no matter what they prayed, they would all mention Qin Hao's name, as if Qin Hao was a real god. Tsk tisk, a voice sounded. It was the 4 Dangu guards who were guarding the bronze statues. Although the sun was hot and their faces were sweaty, there was not a trace of complaint on their faces. They even felt very proud of their job. Along with the passing of countless alchemists, the 4 of them guarded the bronze statue with their backs ramrod straight. This kind of spirit was exemplary. Ajia, did you pray today? Nonsense. When do the 4 of us not pray? What are you praying about today? I beg Gongzi Qin how to grant me a girlfriend. Look at how useless you are. In any case, you're a 5th stage profound sage guard, yet you don't even have a girlfriend. No, no, no. How could I be interested in an ordinary woman? I'm begging Qin how to give me a girlfriend as outstanding as his girlfriend. Bah, he spat at Ajia. You'll see in your next life. Ha ha. The 4 of them laughed. At this moment, an old man walked towards them. He had fluffy hair and was covered in patches. His legs were bow-legged and he looked like a beggar. Seeing this, the 4 people immediately stopped laughing and bowed respectfully, with a trace of fear. Greetings, Vice Pavilion Master Dan Xian. The old man who walked over was the core Xian who had stepped into the venerable realm. He was originally one of Dan Ji's subordinates. Now that his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, and he was Qin Hao's master, his status naturally rose, and he was promoted to Vice Pavilion Master, standing side by side with Yao Lao. Dan Xian faintly nodded and didn't say anything. First, he respectfully lit an incense stick and bowed deeply 3 times to the bronze statue. This was his master. Then, he looked at the kneeling bronze statue of Mu Chunfeng. Mu Chunfeng's bronze statue was so lifelike that it looked like a real person. Dan Xian's mood was very complicated. He was silent for a long time. This was his senior brother. You never thought that you would end up like this, right? After a long time, Dan Xian let out a breath that was suppressed in his heart. He thought that he would never be able to return to Luo Shui in this life and take revenge. Qin Hao, on the other hand, had successfully fulfilled his wish. 3 years ago, when Dan Xian had fallen into a deep slumber, he had made such a request to Qin Hao. In truth, he did not have any extravagant hopes that Qin Hao would be able to accomplish it. He only wanted Qin Hao to come to the Luo River, so that he would have the motivation and will to work hard. Now that he saw Mu Chunfeng end up like this, Dan Xian was full of gratitude and gratification for Qin Hao. How is it? Vice Pavilion Master Dan Xian, are you satisfied? Yao Lao walked over with a smile. This time, the 4 guards were even more shocked and knelt down one after another. All of you leave. Yao Lao waved his hand, not wanting to be disturbed. The 4 nodded and immediately left and hurriedly separated the passers-by. Senior, when Dan Xian saw Yao Lao coming over, he didn't dare to neglect and saluted. Yao Chun was more than 80 years old, 20 years older than Dan Xian. According to seniority, there was nothing inappropriate about calling him senior. Moreover, when Dan Xian was kicked out of Dangu, Yao Lao was already the Vice Pavilion Master. We are both Vice Pavilion Masters. Don't call me that. Otherwise, that troublesome disciple of yours will come to settle the score with me. Yao Lao chuckled. Just call me brother in the future. Brother Yao Lao. Dan Xian said. Yes. Yao Lao nodded and sighed. I didn't expect that Qin Hao would be your disciple. You have a good disciple who is enviable. 7 days had passed since the incident at Starry Moon Academy. Qin Shilong and Chun Kang brought Chen Wanqin back to Daqin. Yi Shuihan followed Yi Longyuan to the palace and continued to receive cruel training. Shun Tianfeng took over Starry Moon Academy again. During this period, he was busy reforming the academy and cleaning up the remaining forces of Tianshulin. As for Xiaogua and Han Man, they had graduated and didn't need to come back to school. It was said that this group of young people was busy searching for talents in Western Liang to strengthen the Grand Alliance. Yao Lao looked up and glanced at the back of Dan Ji's hall. There was a mysterious wooden building there that was listed as the Forbidden Area of Dangu. He didn't understand why Qin Hao would be invited to the Forbidden Area by Xian Qiue, the Pavilion Master of Dangu. Hearing Yao Lao's praise for Qin Hao, Dan Xian was naturally very happy in his heart. Nodding his head, he said, I deeply know that after that brat came to Luo Shui, he was greatly indebted to elder brother's care. In reality, he can also be considered half a disciple of yours. Dan Xian also looked at the forbidden area. He was a little worried. He knew that Xin Qiue wouldn't hurt Qin Hao. After all, Qin Hao was protected by Wei Wei, an Emperor Realm Master. But Dan Xian was still worried. He didn't know what was going on. Why couldn't he ask in the master? Why did he have to ask his disciple? Dan Ji's forbidden area. From the outside, it looked like an old wooden building. But there was another world below the wooden building. There was a huge secret room below. Dan Ji's biggest secret was kept in the secret room. After walking through the dark and deep tunnel, they came to the secret room. There was a portrait hanging in the main hall. It was a man in the portrait. He was wearing a domineering robe with 9 dragons. The emperor's aura surged, making people want to kneel down and worship him. Chapter 828. Compared to his previous life, he was like a completely different person. Although Qin Hao's appearance had completely changed, his temperament was exactly the same as the one in the portrait. The biggest change was that he now had a trace of childishness. In his previous life, he was much more mature. He casually flipped through some of the techniques and alchemy scrolls left in the secret chamber. Most of the scrolls recorded Qin Hao's understanding of alchemy from his previous life. Finally, he looked at Xin Qiue. At this moment, Xin Qiue was like an obedient student. She no longer had the temperament of an elder. On the contrary, Qin Hao had his hands behind his back and looked at her condescendingly. He looked more like an elder. If you have something to ask, just ask. Qin Hao opened his mouth. His tone was very calm. This caused Xin Qiue to be in fear and trepidation. She did not even dare to raise her head. She nervously replied, This lowly one. No, this subordinate does not dare. It is just that the old ancestor has instructed that if your honor returns, I must do my best to assist you. Even if I have to sacrifice everything and bury the entire Dange, I will not hesitate. I just want to verify that the arrow that you released that day, is it sunset? Also, this lady sword technique, is it called graceful sword? Xin Qiue's heart was uneasy. According to her guess, Qin Hao was most likely the supreme that the old ancestor was looking forward to. But it was too hard to imagine. At the same time, Qin Hao was completely sure that Yishuahin's mother was the descendant of Xianyu based on the alchemy scrolls left in the secret chamber. He also deduced the technique that Xin Qiue used when he ate the pancake last time. However, he did not immediately answer. He first looked at Vivian and used their eyes to communicate. Should he play with Grandma Osmanthus first? After all, this woman had hit him twice on the head. Every time they met, she would act like an elder. I'll tell her. I also want to know the whereabouts of Xianyu and Zhang Lang. Vivian was a bit anxious. She and Qin Hao did not have much time left. It was better to not mess around. Gotcha. Xin Qiue shuddered. When the names New Moon and Zhang Lang were read out by Vivian, she immediately knelt down. She no longer needed to verify. She was 100% certain. That's right. I'm the one you're talking about. Xin Yue and Zhang Lang are my adopted disciples. The secret scroll of medicinal pellets in this secret room is what I read to Xin Yue 600 years ago when I was bored. She treated it like a treasure and recorded it down. I am Qin Hao. Qin Hao is me. I will always be me. Yes, but no one believes that I'm Dendi. Qin Hao said with his hands behind his back. Rumble. Xin Qiue felt as if she was struck by lightning again. Although she had already come to a conclusion in her heart, but when she heard Qin Hao admitted himself, she was still shocked. Her heart was beating very fast. She was very nervous. She already didn't know what to say. She said with a trembling voice, Your Honor, you are indeed your honor. The ancestor's prophecy was right. There is no one in the world who can kill you. Dendi, sooner or later, you will come back from the ashes. This day, the descendants of Xin Yue have finally arrived. While speaking, Xin Qiue's tears fell like rain. 600 years of hope generation after generation, regardless of the passage of time. The passage of time, the passing of time, the passing of time, the faith in Shinua had never wavered. Get up. Qin Hao let out a long sigh. To him, it was merely the instant when he stepped into the God-punishing formation. To others, it was an entire 600 years. This subordinate doesn't dare. Xin Kiyue didn't get up. She felt that she didn't have the qualifications to stand. Then she asked, "Your Honor, what exactly happened? Why did you become like this? In fact, when I saw you together with Shui Han for the first time, I almost mistakenly gave the order to kill you." It's a long story. Next, Qin Hao told Xin Kiyue about the ambush in God Burial Valley. Borrowing the power of the God equipment, his divine sense safely escaped from the ambush. However, he was ridiculously reborn in the body of a big trash from Western Liangxin family. As for what happened after that, there was no need to talk about it. Such a miraculous thing actually happened. Xin Kiyue was very emotional. She could write a book about this story. Then, she gritted her teeth and said, "The battle god and Empress Lingxian are vicious. They work together with the 12 Diyuan emperors to plot against you. They are so ruthless. They will pay the price." They caused Qin Hao's physical body to be destroyed and caused the East Qin 4 divine generals to become traitors and flee everywhere. This debt had to be settled sooner or later. Of course, they will pay the price. I will personally create a 9-heaven god punishing formation. Then, I will throw those people who work together to plot against me into it one by one. Finally, I will personally take the heads of Zhang Wu and Han Lingxian. Qin Hao's eyes were filled with a strong, murderous aura. "By the way, you haven't said where did Xin go? Is she still alive?" At this moment, Vivian asked Xin Kiyue. Xin Kiyue shook her head. This subordinate doesn't know either. She really didn't know. Back then, Xinyu and Zhang Lang were injured and were crazily pursued by the 3 Battle God Guards and the Battle God Guards. In order to avoid being caught in one net, they split into 4 groups and escaped from Daqin. Xinyu escaped to Western Liang with all kinds of difficulties and then founded the Danga sect. However, one day, Xinyu suddenly disappeared. She only left one sentence for her descendants. She asked them to guard the sect and wait for Qin Hao's return. According to the sect masters, the old ancestor made a divination before he disappeared. The divination showed that the Lord is still alive. However, we still don't know where the old ancestor went in the end. Xin Kiyue said in a distressed voice. "Divination?" Qin Hao opened his eyes wide and curled his lips. That stupid girl can even recognize the wrong medicine. How could she know divination? Xin, you definitely didn't make a divination and left the ancestral order. Firstly, she might really believe that Qin Hao was still alive and wanted her descendants to wait. Secondly, if Qin Hao never appeared, then the people of New Moon Sect could live in Western Liang forever and live peacefully. As for where did Xin go, Qin Hao knew her temper the best. She only had one place to go. That was the Valley of the Gods. Idiot! Qin Hao cursed in his heart. The people buried in the Valley of the Gods were all peerless emperors. There were countless treasures. Qin Hao guessed that Xin might have walked the same path as him and went to try her luck. If her cultivation level increased by 1 because of this, then she would have a higher chance of avenging Qin Hao. However, Qin Hao didn't say this out loud. "I thought I could reunite with little Yu. What a pity," Vivian shook her head. Although she didn't fulfill her wish of reuniting with Xinu's cultivation level, she should still be alive. Therefore, there was still a chance for them to reunite. "Please forgive my rudeness. May I ask who you are?" Xin Kiyue carefully raised her head and glanced at Vivian. "You don't know her?" Qin Hao was a little surprised. He continued, Oh, I forgot. You're just a little girl who has lived for a few decades. It's normal that you don't know Emperor Ziwei. After all, we're all old demon from 600 years ago." Boom! XINQ almost jumped up in shock. Emperor Ziwei? The girl in front of her looked like she was only 17 or 18 years old. She was actually Dinda's best friend on the Setting Sun Divine Mountain. The graceful sword was a supreme sword technique that the two of them created together. Xinkue had really learned something new this time. She clenched her fists and battle intent appeared in her eyes. What orders do you have next? Do you want to declare war on the East Continent's Daqin? To be honest, I've hooked up with that bastard Yilong Yuan. I can drag him down with me. Chapter 829. He had already retrieved the tranquil netherwater. Before leaving for the northern border, he needed to resolve the petrification, break the seal of the blood abyss, and rescue the main branch of the Qin family. Qin Hao's parents were among those people. Qin Hao was looking forward to reuniting with them. Moreover, Xiaolei and Xiaojun were descendants of the great Qin dynasty. They had wandered outside and suffered a lot. It was time for them to return to the orthodox line and restore the empire. Xinkue was stunned. Wasteland? That barren land? Western Liang was the poorest of the four great dominions. The poorest place in Western Liang was undoubtedly the wasteland. There were not many branches of Dangu in the wasteland. Could it be that Qin Hao had a grudge with the three great families in charge of the wasteland? She did not continue guessing. Guessing was meaningless. What she needed to do was to follow Qin Hao's orders. All right, Xinkue nodded without hesitation. No matter what Supreme did in the wasteland, it did not matter. Pavilion Master, the sisters have been kneeling outside the hall for a long time. At this time, Yao Lao's anxious voice sounded in the secret room. In order to plead with Xinkue to treat their mother, Naransu and Nalan Li knelt in front of Dan Ji's door. They did not even touch a drop of water. For the past 7 days, Qin Hao and Wei Wei were invited to Dan Ji's room to treat their injuries. The sisters also knelt for 7 days and 7 nights. What two stubborn girls! Xinkue was somewhat helpless. She glanced at Qin Hao, as if asking for his opinion. Let's go take a look. Qin Hao got Xinkue to stand up. He was also very curious about Nalan Li's mother's illness. In fact, he had never seen a normal person turn into light and disappear. Yes, Supreme One. Xinkue stood up and obediently followed behind Qin Hao and Mu Yue like a follower. Qin Hao turned around and glared at her. Don't call me Supreme One. Don't you think it's too abrupt? I don't want to attract the attention of others. It's fine to maintain our current relationship. Qin Hao's identity was too special. If Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, Dan Xian, and the others would find out about it, they would definitely be shocked. There was an 80% chance that they could no longer be brothers or master and disciple. This, Xinkue revealed a difficult expression. She didn't dare to call Qin Hao by his full name. That would be offending his superiors. If I'm not allowed to call you Your Honor, how should I address you? She asked anxiously. Call me whatever you want, Qin Hao laughed. Seeing the old auntie in a difficult position, he felt quite happy. Then, he held Vivian's hand and walked out of the secret chamber. All right, then I'll address you as you. Xinkue shook her head. She was unable to find an appropriate form of address. She felt that calling Qin Hao Sir was most appropriate. Outside Dan Ji's palace, Naransu and Nalan Li were holding hands and kneeling together. The sun was scorching hot above their heads, but the two women didn't drink a drop of water for 7 days and 7 nights. They really couldn't take it anymore. Their complexions were very bad, and they were in a trance. If it wasn't for the fact that they had the support of their vitality and faith, they might have already collapsed. Master Yao Lao, Tisk, it's better to call the two of you old men. When Qin Hao arrived at the palace, he first greeted Dan Xian and Yao Lao. Then, he stared at Nalan Li, who was kneeling on the ground. Are you stupid or not? Quickly, get up. While speaking, Qin Hao took the initiative to help Nalan Li up. Don't waste your energy, kid. These two girls are very stubborn. Dan Xian muttered. On the first day, when Nalan Li was kneeling, he and Yao Lao had tried to persuade Nalan Li. However, it was useless. Nalan Li opened her mouth. No, Qin Hao Gij, I must meet the headmaster. Nalan Li, who had always been very obedient, shook her head and resisted Qin Hao's support. She weakly spat out a few words. Naransu was the same. When Vivian helped her up, she kept struggling. Sigh, the pavilion master has already agreed to help you save them. Quickly, get up. Hao also felt a little heartache. Regardless of whether Nalanli agreed or not, he lifted her up with his arm and lifted her legs off the ground. Then, while Nalanli was screaming in shock, Hao took out a pill and stuffed it into her mouth. Cough, cough. I'm choking to death. Nalanli clutched her throat with both hands and coughed a few times. As the pill entered her stomach, it was as if spring water had filled her entire body. Her complexion instantly improved, and she became more energetic. You eat too. Vivian didn't speak much. She wasn't gentle like Hao, and she didn't know how to spoil others. To be precise, other than Hao, she didn't know how to be gentle to others. She directly pinched open Naransu's mouth and forced the pill in. Then, with a cold expression, she said, "If you don't get up, I'll kill you." Nalanju suddenly shivered and stood up with his legs. What a joke. This was an emperor-level big sister. Especially when Mu Yue released her Empress aura. No one could withstand it. This also scared Naransu quite a bit. Nalan Li's thoughts were much simpler. She immediately looked at Hao in pleasant surprise. Big brother Hao, is what you said true? In her impression, Hao's every word would come true. He would never disappoint. I'm just lying to a child. You little girl believe me? In response, Yao Lao curled his lips. Dan Xian also curled his lips. Hao agreed to save them just because he said so? Was the pavilion master just a decoration? What do you mean by lying to a child? I never lied to a child. Okay? Isn't that right, pavilion master? Hao was very dissatisfied with Yao Lao and Dan Xian's performance. He turned around and looked behind him. That's right, you're always right. Xin walked out obediently. She even bowed, without a trace of dignity. She had a look of fear and trepidation. Yao Lao and Dan Xian's jaws dropped. They looked at each other and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. Did the sun rise from the west? The pavilion master listened to Hao's words, and no matter how they looked at the pavilion master now, he looked like an old hen that had been attacked by wild wolves. Was this still the pavilion master? Thank you, President. Thank you. The two sisters immediately cried tears of joy. Hao raised his nose at Dan Xian and Yao Lao in a slightly provocative manner. Dan Xian and Yao Lao looked at Xin. What are you looking at? Have you never seen such a benevolent pavilion master? As alchemists, we have to warm the world with a heart of universal love. Do you understand this principle? Forget it. You're not royal-grade alchemists at all. You too will understand when the time comes. Perhaps you'll reach the level of royal-grade alchemists with unparalleled benevolence. That's the level. Xin did not have a good expression when facing the two of them. She released her domineering aura and said a bunch of great principles that confused Dan Xian and Yao Lao, causing them to be disoriented. Actually, I've heard a little about your mother's illness. To be honest, I've never seen such a strange illness. The chance of curing it is actually less than 10%, Xin said again. She then sighed. These were her heartfelt words. Less than 10%. Nalan Li and Naransu's expressions immediately became extremely ugly. You can definitely do it. After all, you're the only royal-grade alchemist in Western Liang. President, please come with us. If you can't cure it, no one in the world can save our mother. Sob sob, Nalan Li said and cried. Mother? Hao was stunned. Could it be that Xiao Li and Xiao Zhu had a powerful background? Sigh, should I say that you're lucky, or should I say that you're stupid? In fact, there's another alchemist in Western Liang who's thousands of times more capable than me. If he goes, your mother's illness will be cured and she will return to normal. While speaking, Xin smiled and secretly glanced at Hao. She was indeed not sure that she could cure Nalan Li's mother, so she did not dare to go. Even if the Emperor of Wei Kingdom threatened Yi Longyuan to force her to come out, she did not show up. She was afraid that she would ruin her reputation. It did not matter if she ruined her reputation as the pavilion master. The key was that she was a descendant of the New Moon clan and inherited Denda's method. Chapter 830. Are you telling the truth? Nalan Li was shocked. Western Liang has such a miraculous person whose alchemy skills are above the pavilion masters? Dan Xian's heart was in turmoil. Who is this person? I want to see him. No matter how hard it is, I want to stand in front of him and admire him, Yao Lao said with a serious attitude. Xianque was the representative of all the alchemists in Western Liang. She was everyone's spiritual symbol. However, she said that there was another person who could cure the strange disease that even she could not. This person's ability was heaven-defying. They had to worship him or they would not be able to rest in peace. This person is so far away, but he's right in front of you. You two blind old men, Xianque sighed, and finally dared to fix her gaze on Qin Hao. His could be big brother Qin Hao? How is that possible? His alchemy skills are above the pavilion masters? Everyone jumped up in shock. Yao Lao was also fuming. He touched his chest and could not control the frequency of his heartbeat. I'm sorry, everyone. Forgive me for admitting that I'm the miraculous person whose alchemy skills surpass the royal grade. I'm ashamed. Qin Hao rubbed his nose and smiled. If they were comparing alchemy skills, he was not as good as Xianque. After all, his cultivation level was higher. However, if they were comparing the use and understanding of medicinal herbs, Qin Hao was invincible. That's why I don't know if I should scold you two for being stupid or admire your luck. If you had invited this miraculous person over earlier, Empress Wei's strange disease might have been cured long ago. Xianque responded with incomparable sincerity. She was completely convinced. This, I still don't believe it. How can Big Brother Qin Hao be better than the Pavilion Master? Naylan Li said. Yeah, I know he fights very fiercely and has endless means, but I didn't know he could concoct pills. Naylan Zhu had a lingering fear in his heart when he saw the scene of Qin Hao fighting Tian Boguang. Cut the crap. There's no strange disease in this world that Hao can't cure. If he can't cure it, then you should be collecting the corpse of the patient. Vivian said coldly. Qin Hao was the only alchemist in the mortal world who had reached the sovereign grade. He was only one step away from reaching the divine grade. She would never allow anyone to question Qin Hao's ability. I believe it too. At this moment, Yao Lao nodded solemnly. Qin Hao's understanding of medicinal herbs, as well as the way to use them, was full of whimsical ideas and endless tricks. Yao Lao had a deep understanding of this. After all, the two of them had quarreled until their faces turned red when they were in the medical tower. All right, let's not waste any more time. I'll send you back to Western Way now. Xianque looked at Qin Hao apologetically. Leaving such a terrible mess to his honor to deal with, she indeed had no other choice. Yes, Qin Hao didn't mind at all. He nodded his head. In fact, he also wanted to see the strange disease that turned into light foam. Then, he said seriously to Dan Xian, Master, can I trouble you to make a trip back to Jinling City and tell Old Demon and Aku to gather in Qiang City 3 days later? We have a big business to do. After finishing this business, I will leave. In other words, Qin Hao wanted to go to Beijiang to look for Xiaohan. Yes, I understand. Dan Xian replied. Let's go, Vivian. Let's go and see the strange disease that turned into light foam. Qin Hao held Vivian's hand and then gave Xianque a look. Go! In the next moment, Xianque's emperor-level aura surged and tore the space apart. With a wave of her hand, Qin Hao and the other three were sent into the space tunnel. In fact, Vivian could tear the space apart and do it herself. However, Vivian's current condition was very unstable. She urgently needed to recuperate. Her vitality was abnormally low. Qin Hao was well aware of this, and so was Xianque. Accompanied by a burst of dizziness, when Qin Hao and the others opened their eyes again, they had landed in the imperial capital of the Western Liangwei Kingdom, and they landed in front of the imperial palace. This was the first time Qin Hao came to the Western Wei Kingdom. Western Wei's national strength was second only to Luo Shui, and its imperial capital was naturally incomparably prosperous. Unfortunately, Qin Hao didn't have time to appreciate it. Because of their sudden appearance, they immediately alarmed the imperial guards of Western Wei. Who are you? How dare you break into the imperial palace? Come, arrest them and interrogate them to see if they are spies. With a whoosh, a large group of Imperial guards surrounded Qin Hao and the others. Are you blind? Get out of my way. In the next second, Nalanli put her hands on her waist and shouted, Damn! It's the eldest princess and the second princess. We pay our respects to the princess. We deserve to die for disturbing the princess's return to the palace. The Imperial guards knelt down one after another. So it's like this. Qin Hao immediately understood. He knew the identity of Naransu and Nalanli. However, he wasn't surprised at all. In fact, not to mention that his two friends were princesses, even if one day Tsyogwa was the incarnation of a wild bull spirit, Qin Hao wouldn't be surprised. After all, he had traveled through time for 600 years, and Dinda was reborn as a teenager. It was already ridiculous enough. However, in the next second, Qin Hao's expression changed greatly. He felt a tyrannical aura sweeping over. Judging from the fluctuation of the aura, it was an emperor-level expert with a cultivation of around the second level. Wei Wei. Qin Hao looked at Wei Wei. Yes. Wei Wei nodded and turned around, turning into a beam of light and flying into Qin Hao's spatial ring. Even if she didn't return to her peak state, Wei Wei could still display the strength of a second to third level primitive emperor. This strength was definitely enough to cause a huge commotion in Western Liang. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it was better to let Wei Wei hide. Hiding Wei Wei could be used as a trump card. Secondly, taking this opportunity, she could adjust her breathing and nourish herself in the spatial ring. However, the emperor-level aura that flew over was obviously not an enemy, but the king of Great Wei, Naransu, and Nalanli's father. This was a square-faced, old-fashioned middle-aged man. He was wearing a dragon robe and had rushed over anxiously after sensing the aura of his daughters. Two wild girls, you're finally willing to come home. Quickly follow your father back to the palace. Nalan Zhengang happily pulled Naransu and Nalanli's hands. When he was about to leave, he suddenly saw Qin Hao. He frowned slightly and exclaimed. Qin Hao obviously came back with his daughters. Could it be? Father, don't guess blindly. He's our senior brother in Qiyang. At this time, Naransu hurriedly explained. After Nalan Zhengang heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that his daughters had brought back a son-in-law. Fortunately, it wasn't because someone came to propose marriage today. Hello, Uncle Nalan. Qin Hao greeted first. Yes. Nalan Zhengang nodded unhurriedly. He was a little surprised. This little disciple of Qiyang was not timid in front of him, the emperor. It was a little unexpected. Nalan Zhengang didn't have the mood to dwell on this. Instead, he anxiously said to his two daughters, Quickly follow me to Vermilion Bird Palace. Your mother's condition has worsened again. Temple Master Liu is trying his best to save her. Fortunately, Minister Fong's son, Fong Tangjing, came back from the northern border today. He said that your mother will recover. As he spoke, Nalan Zhengang was very excited. Originally, he wanted to die today. His queen was about to leave the world, but suddenly, a savior came from the sky. What? Minister Fong's son, Fong Tangjing? He has the ability to save our mother. Naransu and Naransu were stunned. Immediately, they looked at Qin Hao at the same time. Chapter 831. As the son of a small official, his status was slightly higher than that of an ordinary person. With Fong Tangjing's status, he wasn't even qualified to stand at the entrance of the palace, let alone step into the emperor's chambers. However, he was extremely talented in alchemy since childhood and was once the champion of a youth alchemy competition organized by Danji's branch. Later, he joined the #1 alchemy sect in Northern Qi, the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. After returning from his studies in Northern Qi, he relied on his status as a disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Now, his status was completely different. At the very least, his knowledge of alchemy was shocking. While they were talking, Qin Hao and Nalan Li were led into the emperor's chambers by Nalan Zhengang. Nalan Zhengang didn't continue to ask about this senior brother beside his children. He didn't have the mood to entertain Qin Hao. Besides, Qin Hao didn't have the qualifications to be entertained by him. At this time, the Clear Sparrow Palace was bustling with activity. There were a large number of guards guarding the place, and countless maids running back and forth. Clearly, the Empress's condition was very bad. Before he stepped through the door, Qin Hao heard a loud noise coming from inside. The noise was mixed with disdain and severe humiliation towards Dan Ji's alchemy skills. Hall Master Lu, long time no see. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Why haven't you died of old age? With your age, you should also die. When I won the alchemy competition, I should have become an outstanding alchemist of the branch. I should have even attracted the attention of Dan Ji's headquarters and been groomed by them. In the end, I was coldly rejected by you, killing my alchemy future. Fortunately, I was chased away by you and didn't become a member of Dange. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the chance to join the Medicine Emperor Pavilion in Northern Qi and become its disciple. After coming to Northern Qi, I knew what it meant to have vast land and abundant resources. After entering the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, I knew what orthodox alchemy was. It was you who let me see Dan Ji's insignificance and Dan Ji's unbearability. Compared to the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, the Medicine Emperor Pavilion is misleading the disciples. It belongs to the unorthodox path and is as cheap as dirt. Inside the room, the two groups of people faced each other. One of them was wearing Dan Ji's robes. They were 3 old men, and all of them were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Their beards were blowing and their eyes were glaring. Their faces were full of anger. The leader was none other than Palace Master Lu. 7 days ago, he had received Yao Lao's summons to participate in the great battle at Star Moon Academy. Hence, Hall Master Lu's entire body was wrapped in bandages, and his injuries were not light. For the sake of the Empress's illness, he had come regardless of his injuries. Opposite Palace Master Lu stood a young man with an arrogant expression. The young man had a face that deserved a beating as he pointed at Palace Master Lu and the others and hooted. Without a doubt, this person was none other than the disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, Fong Tangjing. Back then, when I refused to let you join Dange, I was actually very heartbroken. Your talent in alchemy is indeed outstanding. However, as a person, he was too arrogant. Once he achieved something, he would become condescending. A person like you with such a bad character is not qualified to be Dan Ji's alchemist, and even less qualified to insult our Dange. Palace Master Lu's reaction was very intense. He used too much strength, and his injuries were aggravated. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Aya, look at how angry you are. You're already vomiting blood. I only said a few words of truth, and you can't accept it. Are all Dan Ji's people as useless as you? You can't save the Empress, but I can. Next, I'll let you see my methods. I'll use our medicine, Emperor Xianshun. I'll give you a hard slap in the face and let you understand how stupid it was to be rude to me back then. Ha ha! Fong Tangjing laughed unscrupulously and was about to walk towards the Empress's bed. At this time, Qin Hao and Nalanli came in. Fong Tangjing's legs were stuck in place, and he immediately lost the mood to treat the Empress. He immediately turned around, and his face was smiling like a dog's tail flower. He stared at Naransu with fiery eyes. Ah, Zhu, it's really you. I guess that you must be back. Is this little sister beside you, little Li? I haven't seen you for a few years, and you've grown so big. Come, let Brother Jing hug you. Fong Tangjing had always admired Naransu very much. At this moment, he opened his arms, and a few drops of saliva fell from the corner of his mouth. Looking at the slim and elegant sisters, his soul was almost hooked by Naransu and Nalanli, and he lost his self-control to the extreme. Cough. Accompanied by a light cough, a tall and muscular man suddenly appeared in front of Fong Tangjing, as if a wall blocked his vision. Qin Hao stood up. He couldn't let Fong Tangjing touch Nalanli. Fong Tangjing was too excited at this time, and he accidentally bumped into Qin Hao's arms. Moreover, he wasn't as tall as Qin Hao, so he bumped into his chest. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, Fong Tangjing felt a great pain on the top of his head. He tasted something sweet in his throat, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood from the collision. He stepped back awkwardly. He felt as if he bumped into a steel plate. It was not a human body at all. It was too damn hard. Who are you? Fong Tang Jing didn't succeed. He managed to stop his steps with great difficulty, and he was furious. Qin Hao dared to ruin his good thing. No matter who I am, you're just a lowly commoner. You've committed a great crime by not kneeling down and saluting the two princesses. You even came to hug them without knowing it. You deserve to be executed. Qin Hao shouted and reprimanded. Before he came, he heard the other party insulting Dan Ji's alchemy skills. Dan Ji's alchemy skills were Qin Hao's skills. He was obviously looking down on him, and he even touched Nalan Li. Did he not put him in his eyes as an elder brother? This roar caused everyone to tremble in fear. Nalan Zhenggang was stunned. He couldn't help but look at Qin Hao. He thought to himself, this young man is so mighty. He has my style. He nodded and had a good impression of Qin Hao. First, he protected his daughter. Then, he reprimanded Fong Tangjing. This Fong Tangjing really deserved a lesson. If he didn't have a way to save the empress, Nalan Zhenggang would have slapped him out of the palace. Rude. This is Master Fong Tangjing, a disciple of Northern Qi's Medicine Emperor Pavilion. I grant him the privilege of not kneeling. But on the surface, Nalan Zhenggang had to protect Fong Tangjing. After all, he had a favor to ask. As he spoke, he secretly sent an apologetic look to Qin Hao. Oh, so you're a disciple of Northern Qi's Medicine Emperor Pavilion. I was rude. How could Qin Hao not understand Nalan Zhenggang's meaning? He sang the same tune with the other party and followed Nalan Zhenggang's wishes. Otherwise, the other party didn't have a way out. Hey, this kid is good. Nalan Zhenggang's eyes suddenly flashed. His face was full of joy. His good impression of Qin Hao increased by a few points. He felt that Qin Hao had good eyesight and was a promising talent. He must have a good chat with him later. However, Fong Tangjing was not happy. Especially after Nalan Zhenggang explained his identity, his arrogance increased exponentially. He immediately pointed at Qin Hao's nose and said, now that you know my awesome identity, it's time to let me know who you are, a nobody who is not handsome, not tall, and not pale. What do you have? What right do you have to step into Vermilion Bird Palace? What right do you have to stand beside little Zhu and little Li? Chapter 832. Following Fong Tangjing's words, everyone's gaze landed on Qin Hao. They were also curious as to why Qin Hao was able to enter the Empress's palace. Others might not recognize Qin Hao, but Home Master Lu did. Qin Hao was publicly acknowledged as the little ancestor of all alchemists in Western Liang, a talent that Yao Lao valued. He was also the disciple of the newly promoted vice Pavilion Master Dan Xian. His status was extraordinary, and it wasn't an exaggeration to call him Dan Ji's holy son. 7 days ago, Hall Master Lu had personally participated in the battle at Star Moon Academy and witnessed Qin Hao's glory. At that time, Qin Hao was the center of attention, and Hall Master Lu was merely one of 1,000 Hall Masters, so insignificant that it was impossible for her to attract Qin Hao's attention. But at this moment, Hall Master Lu was standing face to face with Qin Hao. She was so excited that she almost screamed. Regarding this, Qin Hao immediately gave Hall Master Lu a look, telling him not to make a fuss. Why aren't you saying anything? Could it be that you're scared by my identity as a disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion and don't even have the courage to introduce yourself in front of me? What a disappointment. Fong Tangjing shook his head and sighed. Qin Hao didn't reply. He thought that Hall Master Lu was afraid of him. Hey, who do you think you are? A mere disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Clean your ears and listen carefully. The person beside me is... Nalan Li's determination to support Qin Hao wasn't any weaker than Xiaogua's. She immediately stood out. Little Li. Qin Hao promptly stopped her, not allowing her to continue speaking. Then he smiled and said to Fong Tangjing, I'm just a small alchemist sent by Dan Ji's headquarters. Today, I've been ordered to follow the two princesses to treat the Empress. It's my honor to meet Grandmaster Fong today. Since Fong Tangjing said that he would use the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's miraculous method to slap Dangu in front of Hallmaster Lu. In that case, Qin Hao didn't mind using Dan Ji's identity as a little alchemist to slap him back. This caused Palace Master Lu, who was standing at the side, to suddenly be stunned. Only then did he understand Qin Hao's intentions. He exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders, and he felt much more relaxed. Qin Hao had received Vice Pavilion Master Yao Lao's true teachings, and was also the only disciple of the newly promoted Vice Pavilion Master Dan Xian. Qin Hao's alchemy skills were something that Temple Master Lu absolutely trusted. So, not only are you a disciple of Qiyong, but you're also an alchemist from Dan Ji's headquarters. To be able to gain the recognition of two great forces at such a young age is truly rare. Among the younger generation, you could be considered extremely extraordinary. At this time, Nailan Zhenggang praised.
At the same time, he was also a little disappointed. If Pavilion Master Dan Gu came in person, Nailan Zhenggang had no doubt that he could save the Empress. However, they sent Qin Hao, a little alchemist. It was impossible to save him. It seemed that he still had to rely on Fong Tongjing's ability. At this moment, Nailan Zhenggang obviously didn't trust Qin Hao's ability, but he didn't know that it was precisely because Pavilion Master Dan good enough confidence in himself that he sent Qin Hao over. Ha! Fong Tangjing pointed at Qin Hao and laughed. I was wondering who you were. It turns out that you are just a little alchemy apprentice from Dan Gu. How dare you boast that you can save the Empress? Stop dreaming, don't you see? Even your Palace Master Lu is helpless. Don't embarrass yourself as an alchemy apprentice. Why, go back the way you came, lest you feel pain on your face when I slap Palace Master Lu later. With all due respect, with me, Fong Tangjing here, you actually have no chance to save the Empress. This is a stage for me to display my talent. You can only watch from the sidelines. Fong Tangjing's nose was almost raised to the top of his head, and he felt extremely tall. Qin Hao was just an alchemy apprentice. How could he compare with him? Then he glanced at Naransu, full of a sense of showing off, as if to say, the guy you invited is too inexperienced and useless. If you want to save the Empress, you have to rely on me. In this regard, Naransu was too lazy to pay attention to him. Palace Master Lu, how is the Empress now? Nailan Zhenggang asked anxiously at this time. It was Palace Master Lu who had been treating the Empress, so he knew the condition best. Alas, forgive the old man for being so bold, but I'm afraid the Empress can't survive tonight. Palace Master Lu shook his head again and again. Just now. He joined forces with 2 deputy palace masters, but they failed to suppress the Empress's condition. It was still deteriorating rapidly. At most, in another 2 hours, her body would completely turn into light foam and disappear completely. Squeak! Nailan Zhenggang clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. I hope everyone will do their best, no matter how much it costs, even if it exhausts the power a great way. You must save the Empress. Without her, I, Nailan Zhenggang, wouldn't have a dragon's seat today. Brother Qin Hao. Nailan pulled the corner of Qin Hao's clothes. Her eyes were red. From the discussion, she felt the seriousness of the situation. She couldn't lose her mother. Qin Hao nodded silently, indicating that don't be nervous. I'm here for everything. Oh, don't be nervous. I'm here for everything. Old man Lu can't save the Empress. It's Dan Gu who is too useless. Your Majesty, don't worry. I'll make the Empress get better immediately. Fong Tangjing roared out without thinking. Then I'll have to trouble Master Fong to quickly perform his magical means. Nailan Zhenggang said anxiously, and
Fong Tangjing nodded solemnly and glared at Qin Hao provocatively. Then, he walked toward the Empress's bed. He was about to lift the bead curtain, but he suddenly stopped and turned back. By the way, Your Majesty, if I cure the Empress, then my proposal just now, if you can really cure the Empress, I promise that I will reward you heavily. But if you want to use this to threaten my daughter and make Xiaozhu marry you, I'm sorry. As a father, I can't do it unless Xiaozhu agrees. Nalan Jinggong's face was very gloomy. He was the dignified emperor. How could he be controlled by the son of a minister? And he had to bet his daughter's lifelong happiness. Fong Tangjing stopped, his eyes trembled, and he sneered. Well, even if you don't agree, I will still do it. Even if it's for myself, I will slap Dan Ji's face hard and let them know how useless they are. Palace Master Lu, wait and see. And Fong Tangjing pointed to Qin Hao. It's important to know one's own limits. Do you understand what I mean? Stay away from Xiao Su and Xiao Li. Once I use my awesome alchemy, I believe that Xiao Su will fall in love with me, and so will Xiao Li. Therefore, I, Fong Tangjing, will take 2 princesses and let them serve me together. Fong Tangjing laughed, lifted the bead curtain, and walked in. These words were incomparably arrogant, without any respect for the dignity of Great Wei's emperor. It made many eunuchs and palace maids angry. This bastard is delusional. Brother Qin Hao, what should we do? He went at first. Nalan Li whispered, her face full of worry. If Fong Tangjing cured the empress and won the praise of the people, and then proposed to marry the princesses, facing the public opinion of Great Wei's people, no matter how much Nalan Jinggong loved his daughter, he would be under a lot of pressure. Don't worry, this person doesn't have the ability, Qin Hao said very firmly. Even through the bead curtain, his emperor-level spiritual power had already checked the empress's illness. In fact, the moment Qin Hao stepped into the room, he knew the root of the illness. The empress was not sick, but she was eroded by external things. The external things were very powerful and domineering. Not to mention Fong Tangjing, even if the elders of Medicine Emperor Pavilion came, they could only leave dejectedly. Chapter 833. In this world, apart from Qin Hao, only Emperor Yuan could recognize this item. Only Emperor Yuan had the ability to collect it. Emperor Yuan's rank had to be above the 8th level. When collecting it, he needed a special treasure. Otherwise, he would be injured by the light of judgment. Therefore, the conditions for collecting it were extremely harsh. Even if Fong Tangjing used all his strength, it would be a waste of energy. Following this, he began to treat the empress inside. Even through the bead curtain, everyone present actually knew the empress's condition. Qin Hao focused his vision and looked carefully through the gap of the bead curtain. In front of Fong Tangjing, the empress was lying flat on the huge phoenix bed. Her body was almost transparent, and her appearance could no longer be seen clearly. But with Nalan Li and Naransu as a reference, one could imagine that she was a beauty. At this time, countless tiny light spots like fireflies were constantly floating from her transparent body. As a large number of light spots floated away, the speed of her body becoming transparent became faster and faster. She was almost turning into a phantom. Based on this speed, as Hall Master Lu said, she wouldn't be able to survive the night. Qin Hao guessed that the empress would completely disappear in, at most, 4 hours. According to Nalan Li, the empress has persisted for 7 to 8 years and is still alive. Her perseverance is really amazing. Qin Hao sighed in his heart. The power of the light of judgment was unparalleled. As an ordinary person, the empress could actually persist for so long. She must have too many worries in her heart that she couldn't let go of. Other than that, what was more important was her bed. The huge phoenix bed was like a complete gemstone. The material was quite good, and the light of judgment was hidden in the bed. The empress had survived until now largely because of the protection of this bed. That was why she was still breathing. Big sword, rise for me. Fong Tangjing made his move. With a sharp sound, he took out a sword from his spatial ring. The name was quite scary and sounded very mighty. In fact, this sword was very short, only 1 foot long, but it was very wide and heavy. It was like a big palm and looked very clumsy. This sword was extremely important to Fong Tangjing. From a moment he first stepped into the Medicine Emperor Pavilion until today, he spent all his contribution points to exchange for this sword. In order to save the empress, he specially prepared this sword for several years. This sword had a special effect. It could help a martial artist gather mental energy and soul energy. Fong Tangjing thought that the Empress's soul must have been severely injured when her body turned into light and disappeared. Therefore, he used the power of the great treasure sword to stabilize his soul and cure his illness. After all, it was a priceless king artifact. As he spoke, Fong Tangjing levitated the sword with the Empress beneath it. Then, he released his yuan qi and poured it into the sword. Bit by bit, he strengthened the sword's effects and began the treatment. Fong Tangjing's cultivation was also exposed. A layer of orange light flickered on his body. The orange light was very intense. Clearly, his cultivation level had reached the heavenly saint level. But in Qin Hao's eyes, it was like a pile of garbage. He was used to seeing super geniuses such as Tian Boiguang, Yi Shuifeng, Natural Cold, and the house killer that he killed 7 days ago. Therefore, Fong Tangjing was nothing in front of Qin Hao. However, as the son of a minister, he was definitely considered a top genius in Wei Nation, even though he was not as powerful as the house killer. Do you see that? This is the unparalleled power that I obtained from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. I cultivated day and night and forgot to eat and sleep. I am about to reach the king stage and become a level 7 alchemist. Who in the whole of Wei Nation and Western Liang can compare to me? Even you, Palace Master Lu, are still a king stage cultivator. But you are about to die of old age and have no future. I am younger than you and have more potential. At most, I will be able to reach your current level in 5 years. Ha ha ha! Palace Master Lu, do you feel ashamed? Is your face burning? Does it hurt? Fong Tangjing was like an old woman who sold melons, blowing his own trumpet. He acted as if he was a genius and everyone else was trash. He was indeed arrogant and looked down on others. That was why he was rejected by Palace Master Lu. Although Minister Fong's son is arrogant, he does have the right to be arrogant. He reached the heavenly saint level and became a level 6 alchemist at the age of 27. Another disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. His potential is endless. Some of the eunuchs and palace maids in the room whispered to each other, even though Fong Tangjing looked very unhappy. Although Fong Tangjing was unhappy, there were few people in Shiliang who could compare with him. Even no one could compare with him at all. Palace Master Lu was silent, and there was a fire in his heart. A little level 6 alchemist is so arrogant. He doesn't know shame. In front of my brother, how? He can't even be counted as a leg hair. Nalanli pouted and groaned. Qin Hao is younger than Fong Tangjing and had more potential. So far, he had successfully broken through the king stage and become a level 7 alchemist. But our brother, Hao, never showed off or looked down on others. He was very low-key. Little Li, what did you say? At this time, Nalan Zhenggang looked over. I'm fine. Nalan Li wanted to publicize Qin Hao's brilliant achievements, but when she saw Qin Hao's eyes, she swallowed her words. Master Fong is treating your mother. Don't talk too much, so as not to affect his performance. Nalan Zhenggang scolded. Oh. Nalan Li lowered her head and secretly looked at Qin Hao with a little complaint in her eyes. Why didn't Brother Hao directly show his skills to blind Fong Tangjing's dog eyes and suppress his arrogance? In this regard, Qin Hao had been silent. In fact, he was very excited. After all, he found another element of 9 Heavens God's punishment array, and the Light of Judgment was known as the most powerful attack. He was thinking about how to deal with it after taking it back. Refining the 4th essence soul? No. Having too many essence souls was not necessarily a good thing. Moreover, Qin Hao's physique was not suitable for controlling the power of light. Even if he absorbed it, he could not exert 100% of its power. That would undoubtedly be a waste of the Light of Judgment. By the way, Wei Wei still doesn't have an essence soul. Suddenly, a light flashed in Qin Hao's mind, and then he smiled. On the other side, Fong Tangjing was desperately treating. As time went by, his big sword did not work, and there were more and more light spots floating on the Empress's body. Fong Tangjing began to be anxious. His face was distorted, and his vitality was madly instilled. That's impossible. My big sword has never lost its effectiveness. Fong Tangjing's body trembled, and his face was full of sweat. He could not support the consumption of vitality in his body. When he saw that the big sword had the effect of condensing spiritual power and soul power, he did not hesitate to exchange all his contribution points. He was an alchemist, and he relied heavily on spiritual power. The big sword helped him recover his spiritual power. But why didn't the Empress get better? Master Fong, can you do it? Why don't you take a break? The people outside the field saw that Fong Tangjing could not hold on. Don't worry, one more wave will be enough. Level 9 spiritual power, release it. Fong Tangjing didn't want his efforts to go to waste. He had to succeed. He gritted his teeth and used all his strength. His powerful level 9 spiritual power shook, and all of it was channeled into the sword. The big sword immediately shone brightly, and its power was raised to the extreme. The light covered the Empress's body. But the next second, a counterforce of the light of judgment suddenly came from the Empress's body, and an incomparably white light shot out, bombarding the floating big sword. Chapter 834. He was trying his best to release his spiritual power when he was suddenly hit by a strong shock. With a bang, he was knocked over and broke the bead curtain. He fell at the feet of everyone, and his brain was smashed into paste. Puff! Blood gushed out of Fong Tangjing's mouth. His face was extremely pale. What's going on? Everyone was shocked and jumped in fright. My Empress! Nailan Jingong's dragon robe fluttered as he teleported to the side of the phoenix bed. He anxiously checked the Empress's condition. Just now, a ball of white light suddenly shone. Even through the bead curtain, it almost blinded his eyes. At this time, he found that the light foam drifting from the Empress's body increased in an instant and spread densely. The Empress's arms and legs had disappeared. Obviously, after Fong Tangjing's treatment, her condition had worsened. My great treasure sword! Fong Tangjing was also heartbroken. His movements were not slower than Nailan Jingong's. He ignored his injuries and rushed under the phoenix bed. He picked up the fragments of the sword from the ground and howled in heartache. It seems that Master Fong has failed. Of course, the Empress can't save the situation. What a pity for the two princesses. The eunuchs and maids shed tears and wiped their faces with their sleeves. Master Fong, thank you for your trouble. You can leave now. Nailan Zhengang waved his hand. His heart was dead. He no longer had any hope. Fong Tangjing had tried his best. With Nailan Jingong's cultivation, he could see that the sword was a good treasure. Its quality was at the king level. Perhaps ordinary king-level treasures could not enter Nailan Jingong's eyes, but he could feel that this sword had the strange effect of condensing the soul. Unfortunately, even Fong Tangjing's sword was broken. Just now, he swore that he could save my mother. Now it seems that he's just a clown. Nailan Li was not as broad-minded as her father. Everyone could see that it was Fong Tangjing who made things worse. Why don't we let Dan Ji's young master try? At this time, Temple Master Lu pointed at Qin Hao. Yes, Fong Tangjing can't save her, but it doesn't mean that others can't. Nailan Su said with an anxious look in his eyes. She was really worried about her mother. She was not pretending. Uncle Nailan, let me try. Qin Hao also took the initiative to say, You? Nailan Zhengang turned his head with a complicated look in his eyes. If even Grandmaster Fong couldn't do anything, then Qin Hao, a mere pill apprentice, wouldn't be able to save him. But Qin Hao had good intentions, so he couldn't coldly refuse. He was about to nod and say that he could give it a try. No. Fong Tangjing immediately stopped crying and got up from the ground. He pointed at Qin Hao's face and said, Get out of my way. I told you that today is my stage. You can only watch from the side. Fong Tangjing would not give Qin Hao any chance to perform, especially in front of Naransu. He said confidently to Nailan Jinggang, Your Majesty, in fact, my treatment process has just begun. It has not failed. Forget it, Grandmaster Fong. Don't force yourself. Besides, your sword is already broken. Nailan Jinggang saw clearly that Fong Tangjing was at his wit's end. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but breaking the treasure sword is the first step to treating the Empress. The treasure sword contains a massive amount of heaven and earth soul force, and it is only a catalyst. Next, it is time for me to show my talent. Even if your Majesty doesn't believe me, you should believe in the efficacy of the 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill, right? Fong Tang Jing lied without blushing. As he spoke, he hurriedly took out a small red box from his interspatial ring. He opened the small red box with great reluctance, revealing a pill with a platinum luster. As soon as the pill appeared, it bloomed with light and was incomparably sacred. The 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill was requested from the first disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. It was very rare, because Fong Tang Jing secretly put an aphrodisiac into the bowl of an outstanding female disciple of the sect for the first disciple's pleasure. The 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill was given to Fong Tang Jing as a reward. This pill had an extremely strong effect of restoring mental strength. Originally, he specially prepared it to prevent himself from overusing it when refining precious pills. Now, no matter how reluctant he was, he could only take it out. Oh my God, it is really the 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. And judging from the color, it is a top-grade pill. Maybe the Empress can really get better after taking it. In an instant, the oppressive atmosphere was lifted, and the palace maids and eunuchs were pleasantly surprised. Even Nalan Jingong's expression lit up with a glimmer of hope. The 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill was extraordinary, and the refining process was full of difficulties. Moreover, Fong Tang Jing had a top-grade 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. Although this pill is precious, it can't be compared to the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. If I had a precious pill like the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill, I can guarantee that I can save the Empress. Fong Tang Jing was extremely proud. He held the 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill and showed it off, but on the surface, he pretended to be humble. He was right. The effect of the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill was much stronger than the 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. But it was almost impossible to refine the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. First of all, it was a 7th grade pill. The alchemist grade had to be at least 7th grade. Then, the alchemist's mental strength had to be at least 10th grade or even higher. Chunghua, who refined the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill, consumed a lot of his mental strength and vitality. Even the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's pinnacle king-level alchemists were not 100% confident. In fact, they were not even 30% confident. To put it bluntly, even a supreme-level alchemist wouldn't dare to try as the price was too high. In Fong Tangjing's impression, only the Medicine Emperor Pavilion's pavilion master, who had reached the royal level, managed to refine a 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill after 7 days and 19 days. The grade of the pill was only mid-grade. To be honest, refining the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill was too difficult. TSK, my big brother Qin, how has already refined the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. Someone is still bragging about a mere 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill. Nalan Li was full of disdain for Fong Tang Jing. Although she didn't see Qin Hao's success with her own eyes, Dan Xian's appearance at Star Moon Academy was enough to prove that Qin Hao had succeeded. She didn't know what grade the 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill was. 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill? I'm sorry, but it won't have any effect on the Empress. So, let me give Master Fong a piece of advice. Your 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill is useless. Qin Hao rubbed the tip of his nose and said teasingly, if a 9 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill could expel the corrosive energy in the Empress's body, then the light of judgment would be too cheap. Nonsense. You're just a mere pill apprentice. Why do you have to talk nonsense to me? I'm a disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. You're not even fit to carry my shoes. You're obviously jealous of my 6 Revolutions Spirit Concentrating Pill and are afraid that I can cure the Empress. Fong Tangjing didn't believe Qin Hao's words. If the 6 revolutions spirit concentrating pill was useless, then the 9 revolutions spirit concentrating pill was useless too. He felt that Qin Hao hadn't even seen a first revolution's spirit concentrating pill before. That was why he was boasting shamelessly and belittling the effects of the 6 revolutions spirit concentrating pill. Little Zhu, don't worry. Give this pill to the Empress, and she will wake up immediately. I will let you see a miracle happen. Fong Tangjing walked to the bedside and stuffed the 6 revolutions spirit concentrating pill into the Empress's mouth. Chapter 835. But after taking the medicinal pill, the Empress did not get better immediately, as he said. Instead, the light foam floated faster, densely spread all over the room, and then flew to the sky through the window. In an instant, everyone in the room was anxious. How could this be? It's impossible. Fong Tangjing began to panic, and he never expected that it would be like this. Qin Hao's words came true. Don't bother, it's useless. Even the 6 turns divine pill can't help. The Empress's fate is like this. Not to mention our pavilion master. Even if the almighty immortals come to the world, they can't save her. In this world, no one can stop her from getting into the coffin. Fong Tangjing was extremely frustrated. He sighed, and he accepted his fate. He shouldn't have used the big treasure sword and the 6 turns divine pill. The damn Empress was so difficult to cure. He wasted his treasures. He couldn't let Fong Tangjing show off. Empress. Nailin Zhengang squatted by the bed, looking at his wife who was about to dissipate, and his whole person was devastated. I can cure her. Suddenly, the gospel sounded, grabbing everyone's heart. It was Qin Hao. If it weren't for Nailin Li and Naransu who were about to kneel down and beg him, Qin Hao would like to see how long Fong Tangjing could struggle. It turned out that Fong Tangjing really had no way. Bullshit. I can't conclude that the Empress is incurable, and no one can cure her. Are you challenging my authority as a 6th grade alchemist? Fong Tangjing was so angry that he laughed. He looked high and mighty and said in a firm tone, Provoke you? You don't have the qualification for me to provoke. Qin Hao gave him a contemptuous look and walked quickly to Nailin Zhengang. Uncle Nailin, I'm sure to cure this disease. Time is running out. Otherwise, it's really too late. Okay, you try it. Nailin Zhengang moved away. For Qin Hao's so-called certainty, he actually didn't have any hope. When everyone treated the Empress, they all made such a solemn vow. Nailin Zhengang had seen too much and was numb. Wait. Fong Tangjing stretched out an arm, blocked in front of Qin Hao, and said with an angry face, Boy, are you looking for trouble with me? As an alchemy apprentice, you dare to question what I say? Apologize to me immediately. Get lost. Qin Hao's shoulder slammed into Fong Tangjing's chest with a powerful force, sending Fong Tangjing flying backward. You want me to apologize? Why should I apologize? Fong Tangjing, a 6th grade alchemist, wanted to make Pill Emperor Qin Hao apologize. He thought of himself as a human being. You. Next I. Since you are looking for trouble, I will give you a chance to humiliate yourself. Fong Tangjing rubbed his chest. His sternum was almost broken by Qin Hao. What if he could save the Empress? Fong Tangjing twisted his head off and let Qin Hao kick it like a ball. At this moment, Qin Hao instantly replaced Fong Tangjing and became the focus. Nailin Li, Naransu, and Hall Master Lu were also particularly nervous. Although they knew that Qin Hao's alchemy skills were extraordinary, they were not sure whether he could save the Empress or not. After all, the Empress's strange disease had stumped all the alchemists in Western Lyon. Ordinary people couldn't do anything when they saw her like this. Qin Hao stood by the bed, his palms flat down, and stopped 3 inches away from the Empress's body. Then he released his tyrannical Emperor-level mental strength and activated the enduring Samsara mantra. He controlled the ring on his hand with a god-level technique and began to absorb the light of judgment. Looking inside his ring, a pocket-sized cauldron like an incense burner was suspended in the space. It rotated slowly, shaking out waves of soul-stirring purple light. With Qin Hao's current cultivation, he definitely couldn't take back the light of judgment. He had to use the power of the artifact like he used to collect the red lotus fire and the tranquil water. As his palms were flat, a monstrous suction force directly penetrated the Empress's body and passed into the jade phoenix bed below. At this moment, no matter how the light of judgment struggled, it involuntarily turned into rays of white light and drilled into Qin Hao's palms. It couldn't resist the power of the great void cauldron. The treatment process wasn't long or complicated. Qin Hao waved his hands in front of the Empress, and it was over. At this time, the light of judgment was completely collected, and the erosive force that drilled into the Empress's body was also expelled by Qin Hao. Without the influence of the light of judgment, the Empress's dissipated body began to condense again. In just a few breaths, her limbs were complete, and she was no longer transparent, but gradually returned to the state of a normal person. It's done. Qin Hao finished everything with ease, turned around, and walked back to the crowd from the bed. This incredible, it's incredible. How did he do it? It's done with a wave of his hand. It's fake, right? A group of palace maids and eunuchs poked their eyelids hard. They stared straight at the Empress, who was gradually getting better on the phoenix bed. They rubbed their eyes and couldn't believe it. Hall Master Lu was also stunned. He didn't know what to say. The Empress's illness had troubled him for 7 or 8 years. He tried everything, but he was bald. However, Qin Hao waved his hand. It's done. Amazing, it's really amazing. Thank you, little sir. Nailin Jinggong's gratitude can't be expressed in words. Nailin Jinggong's eyes were filled with tears. If it weren't for his identity, he had an impulse to kneel down. The Empress was everything to him. It's nothing. Don't mention it. Qin Hao waved his hand casually, indicating that Nailin Jinggong didn't need to thank him. Then he stared at Fong Tangjing, who was dumbfounded. Master Fong, do you feel the burning pain on your face? Shouldn't you do something? For example, kneel in front of me to repent. Impossible, it doesn't make sense. Fong Tangjing's face was extremely distorted. He stared at Qin Hao with some fear. He lost the big sword and the 6 transformation pill, but it didn't have any effect on the Empress. But Qin Hao just waved his hand casually, and it was done. There's always someone better than you. Don't think you're so great all day. Quickly fulfill your promise. Nailin Li urged at this time. The whole room was waiting for Fong Tangjing to kneel down and repent. Don't even think about it. Fong Tangjing's face suddenly became ferocious. He pointed to the Empress, who was gradually getting better, and looked at Nailin Jinggong very seriously. He argued, Your Majesty, with all due respect, the credit for curing the Empress belongs to me. It's my big sword and 6 transformation pill that worked, but the effect seems to have come a little late. Earlier, it just happened that this little alchemy apprentice took advantage of the loophole. He waved his hand casually, but it didn't work at all. He took advantage of me. You're so shameless. Nailin Li was immediately angry. But Nailin Jinggong frowned slightly, feeling that Fong Tangjing's words were not unreasonable. After all, Qin Hao did not use any gorgeous means. It was a bit suspicious of taking advantage of the loophole. Chapter 836. Only the person who cured the Empress could make an accurate conclusion and guess when she would wake up. Through this method, they could tell who cured the Empress. I estimate that it will take at least a month, at most half a year, or even longer before the Empress wakes up. Fong Tangjing was cowering and stammering. He didn't have the slightest confidence. Qin Hao laughed and responded loudly. The Empress will wake up in 10 breaths. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. The Empress had been ill for 7 or 8 years. Even if her body had recovered, it was impossible for her to wake up so quickly. This was what everyone agreed on. Nailin Li even began to worry about Qin Hao's arbitrary behavior. Ha ha, you brat. You don't know how to choose your words. I think you don't know anything about alchemy. Fong Tangjing pointed at Qin Hao and mocked him. even though he didn't know when the Empress would wake up. But the Empress's illness was so difficult to treat. It would take at least a year and a half for her to return to normal. In fact, Fong Tangjing wanted to say that it would take more than 10 years for the Empress to wake up. But Qin Hao said 10 breaths. You brat, are you here to be funny? Don't tell me that Dango only took in brainless people. Ha ha, this is too funny. In front of everyone, Fong Tangjing laughed unscrupulously while holding his stomach. But after a few laughs, he couldn't laugh anymore. His smile froze on his face as if he had eaten feces. It was extremely ugly, because everyone saw that the Empress, who was lying quietly like a dead person, was already trembling and supporting her weak body. Her feet slowly moved off the bed, and she reached out a hand in the direction of Nalan Li. Zhengang, little Li, little Zhu, I'm not dreaming, right? I can actually see you again. Is this heaven? The Empress cried. She felt that everything in front of her was a dream. She was in heaven. Even in heaven, God was not unkind to her. He even gave her a pair of fake daughters and a fake husband, and so many eunuchs and palace maids. Why is even Hall Master Lu here? The Empress was startled and suddenly stopped crying. The next second, sob, mother, mother, accompanied by two crying sounds. Naransu and Nalan Li rushed to kneel at the feet of the Empress. Lian, you're finally awake. This isn't a dream, it's real. It's Dan Ge who saved you. He's also Li and Su Er's senior from the same sect. Nalan Zhengang walked forward. He was, after all, an primitive emperor powerhouse. Although he was extremely excited, he could still control his emotions. Crack! Fong Tangjing felt as if he was struck by lightning. Sure enough, he recovered within 10 breaths. This doesn't make sense at all. He danced about, he lost his composure, he tore at his hair like a shrew, and uttered a series of strange cries. Fong Tangjing, the facts have proven that our Dan Ji's young master has won. He accurately determined when the Empress will wake up. Why aren't you kneeling down and repenting? Then apologize to our Dan Ge. Palace Master Lu said with a cold face. His gaze was filled with reverence as he looked at Qin Hao. It was as though he was looking at a god. He was indeed the successor that Yao Lao focused on cultivating. He was indeed the disciple of Deputy Pavilion Master Dan Xian. Dan Ge would still be the overlord of Western Liang for the next few hundred years, because Dan Ge had Qin Hao, the super genius of alchemy. Kneel down! Qin Hao released his majestic aura and roared. Fong Tangjing lacked discipline. Kid, I admit that you've won, but it's absolutely impossible for me to kneel down and repent. Fong Tangjing took 2 deep breaths. Although he felt his face burning, as if he had been slapped a few times, he clenched his fists tightly. He would rather die than bow down to Qin Hao. Fong Tangjing, you're an outstanding junior who has been to the northern borderline and seen the world. We, the men of Wei Kingdom, must do what we say. Don't embarrass me. Nalan Zhenggang's face darkened slightly as he ordered. One must be upright and accept defeat. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I have something to do at home. Since the Empress has recovered, I won't keep you company. But Fong Tangjing ignored Nalan Zhenggang's order and turned to leave. Crash! His front foot had just stepped out of the door when it was blocked by a pile of sharp swords and spears. It was the Imperial Guards guarding the door. You come and go as you wish. Do you think that I, Nalan Zhengang, am so casual in my palace? If you don't kneel down and repent to Dan Ji's young master today, I'll make you come in standing and leave lying down. Nalan Zhengang endured again and again. If it wasn't for the fact that Fong Tangjing had wasted 2 treasures to save the Empress, he would have killed him already. None of the emperors had a good temper. Your Majesty, you really don't want to leave me any face? You should know that I'm an inner disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion in Northern Qi. If I kneel down to Dan Ge, wouldn't it mean that the Medicine Emperor Pavilion is inferior to Dan Ge? You're forcing me. Aren't you afraid that the higher-ups of our sect will take revenge? Fong Tangjing pointed at Nalan Zhengang angrily and said with a hoarse voice. His face was red with anger, and veins were crawling all over his head. Noisy, Qin Hao waved his sleeve, and sent 2 waves of yuan qi towards Fong Tangjing's knees. Crack! As his kneecap was shattered, Fong Tangjing lost his balance and knelt in front of Qin Hao involuntarily. You're full of arrogance and look down on others. I can tolerate that. You're wantonly acting tough and deliberately belittling Dan Ge. I can tolerate that too. But you took advantage of the Empress's critical condition to threaten Xiao Li and Xiao Zhu. Chapter 837. An Yuan King Elite and a Grade 7 Alchemist. How could this be? Fong Tangjing's face was full of bitterness. Cold sweat rolled down his cheeks as fear and shock gradually appeared on his face. Qin Hao was unimaginably strong. He had not returned for a few years. When did such a proud genius appear in Western Liang? In Fong Tangjing's impression, the most powerful country, Luo Shui, could not have produced a Grade 7 alchemist under the age of 20. There might be a Yuan king among the younger generation. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to be a Grade 7 alchemist at the same time. Who are you? Why are you pretending to be weak and trying to harm me? Fong Tangjing suppressed the fear in his heart and asked unwillingly. I will never change my name. I am Qin Hao from the Grand Alliance. Qin Hao said condescendingly. Qin Hao. Fong Tangjing was stunned. He had never heard of such a person. Before leaving Western Liang, he had an impression of Yi Wuhan, Yi Shuifeng, and Natural Liang. He really did not know where Qin Hao came from. What? You are Qin Hao, the invincible young man who brought people to topple the principal of Xingyue College 7 days ago? He even defeated Tian Daluo, an emperor-level expert who returned from the Zhanyue mansion in the northern borderline? Nailan Zhengang was extremely shocked. His heartbeat suddenly accelerated. Qin Hao's name was like thunder to his ears. Since the New Star competition a few years ago, the name Qin Hao had been like a rising comet, shining brightly in the land of Western Liang. He was the champion of the New Star competition and second in the Medicine Valley trial. Although he was second, the outside world had always said that Qin Hao deliberately gave the first place to Yi Wuhan. What made Nailan Zhengang engraved in his heart was that when Nailan Li entered Qiangbin for the assessment, Qin Hao had saved her many times. He was the benefactor of the Nailan family. Nailan Li had told Nailan Zhengang about it more than once. Nailan Zhenggang's ears were about to grow calluses. Qin Hao's name had been branded into his bones. He once swore that if he ever saw this young man, he would definitely thank him properly. He would hold a big banquet and let the civil and military officials of Great Wei line the streets to respectfully welcome him. But who knew that Qin Hao really came, but Nailan Zhengang didn't recognize him. When they met, he didn't even have the least bit of etiquette. He directly ignored Qin Hao. At this moment, he glared at his 2 daughters with an extremely reproachful look, as if to say, "Why didn't you tell me earlier, so that I can express my admiration?" Uncle Nailan, don't blame Xiao Li. I was the one who told her to keep it a secret. That's right. I'm Qin Hao. Qin Hao is me. The champion of the Rising Star competition is me, and the second place of the Western Liang Medicine Valley trial is also me. I was the one who killed Star Moon Academy's chief dean's grandson, Tian Buguang. I killed Yi Shuifeng. The chief disciple of the 10 Directions cabinet is naturally dead. He couldn't even last a single move against me. It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. I didn't even want to mention it. But you're a half-full, 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 half-empty thing. Qin Hao pointed to Fong Tangjing at his feet, shook his head, and said in a pitiful tone, Tian Buguang, naturally cold, and Yi Shuifeng, at least they're qualified to die in my hands. But you're not even qualified to die. Get out. Bang. A kick. Qin Hao kicked Fong Tangjing's face, kicked him out of the room, and smashed the palace wall. Ha ha. The little ancestor is mighty. You're worthy of being the holy son of our Dan Ge, the young man who is relied on by the 2 deputy pavilion masters at the same time. Fong Tangjing, do you understand what it means to be a small child in front of Great One? You're still bragging about being an inner disciple of Beijiang. No matter how powerful you are, Can you be more powerful than Qiandao, a cabinet disciple of the Zhanyue mansion in Beijiang? Even Qiandao was killed by our little ancestor. Get the F*CK out of here. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of our Dange. Temple Master LV had been holding back for a long time and finally burst out. He pointed at Fong Tangjing outside and laughed at him. What, you even killed Qiandao? Damn it. Fong Tangjing crawled out from the broken brick. There was an eye-catching shoe print on his face. As a disciple of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, and the relationship between Northern Qi and Northern Yan was relatively good, he knew of Qiandao's name. Qiandao was a super genius who could be ranked in the top 5 of Northern Qi. In front of Qiandao, Fong Tangjing didn't even deserve to be called trash. But Qiandao was also killed by Qin Hao. Good. Qin Hao, right? Today's humiliation, I'll remember it on behalf of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Also, let me tell you, don't think that killing Qiandao is that great. Compared to our Medicine Emperor Pavilion senior brother, he's at most a slightly stronger grasshopper. I, Fong Tangjing, swear that sooner or later I'll visit your Dange. Headquarters, I'll get back my face. Just wait and see. Fong Tangjing's leg bones were crushed. Unable to bear the pain, he quickly took out 2 pills from his spatial ring, threw them into his mouth, chewed them, and swallowed them. This is the bone-molding pill, which has the miraculous effect of healing bones. Accompanied by the sound of bones being pieced together, Fong Tangjing stood up from the ground with difficulty. Without looking back, he limped out of the palace as if he was fleeing, in an extremely sorry state. Today he had lost all his face. Not only did he lose his dignity, but also the face of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. I, Qin Hao, have never been afraid of anyone. I'll accompany you to the end. Qin Hao circulated his internal qi, his voice rolling out. He didn't kill this person because he was afraid that Nailan Jinggong's family would be implicated. The Medicine Emperor Pavilion is one of the top sect in Northern Qi. It's not easy to deal with. Although Nailan Jinggong is also an emperor-level expert, compared to Yulong Yuan, his ability is a lot weaker. Moreover, Qin Hao won't lead the trouble to Little Li and Little Zhu. Sparing Fong Tangjing's life, the other party will only hate Qin Hao and put the blame on Qin Hao. The Empress has recovered. I suggest Uncle Nailan to order people to drag the Jade Phoenix bed into the deep mountains and destroy it. Then, let Hall Master Lu refine some medicinal pills to recuperate the body. I still have important things to do. Goodbye. Qin Hao finished and was about to leave. The Trial of Light was successfully collected. He had to find a place where no one was around and help Vivian refine it into a primordial spirit. 3 days later, there'll be a big battle waiting for him. After this battle, Qin Hao will be far away from Western Liang. Could it be that this bed has brought disaster to the Empress? Nailan Jinggong whispered. This jade was accidentally found 7 years ago. The material was good. He brought it back and cast it into a bed for his most beloved. He didn't expect to bring back a disaster, but he didn't continue to ask. Whatever Qin Hao said, he would do. But he didn't know that if he didn't bring back the jade, Qin Hao may also collect the rare treasure Trial of Light. He didn't know what this jade was made of. It had the ability to block the detection of the Great Void Cauldron. Speaking of which, Nailan Jinggong could be considered as Qin Hao's benefactor. Brother Qin Hao, are you really in such a hurry to leave? At least stay and let my father express his gratitude. Nailan grabbed Qin Hao's sleeve tightly. Yes, stay for a few days. I will take you to tour the scenery of Dawei. I promise, it won't be worse than Luo Shui. Naransu patted her bulging chest and hurriedly urged him to stay. In this regard, Qin Hao shook his head firmly. Then you take me and my sister. Brother Qin Hao, I don't know what big things you're going to do next. But remember, we are also members of the Haoqi Alliance. Nailan Li pursed her lips. She remembered clearly that before coming, Qin Hao had told Dan Xian to contact all the masters to gather in Qiangbin in 3 days. Obviously, there was something big going to happen. If you need any help, please tell me directly. Nailan Jinggong will not frown. Nailan Jinggong was very smart and noticed that there was something hidden. Oh, what if Northern Qi declares war on Dan Ge because of what happened today? Qin Hao turned back and laughed. He wanted to see Nalan Jinggong's attitude. I will use the power of the whole country to fight against Northern Qi at all costs. Nalan Jinggong was a little nervous, but he still said it without hesitation. Ha ha ha. Uncle Nalan's words are enough. I, Qin Hao, will never drag my friends down. The Empress just got better. You all should have a good family gathering. As for my matter, I can solve it myself. Goodbye. Qin Hao pinched Nalan Li's face and turned to fly out of the door. With a whoosh, a pair of flaming wings spread out and turned into a fire shadow that soared into the sky. Farewell, little ancestor. Chapter 840. As Dan Xian went up the stage, 2 rows of maids followed behind him. The maids were wearing cheongsams with slits. The slits were high and their thighs were swaying in front of the audience. Many people's eyes almost popped out as they swallowed their saliva, especially the leading maid. She exuded a seductive aura from head to toe. A casual glance could steal a person's soul. It even made Shimin Gang, Huangpu Zhanquang, and Dugu Nine Swords' hearts thump wildly as they gasped for breath. When they noticed that they had lost their composure, they quickly straightened their clothes. They straightened their posture. At this moment, the 3 of them could not help but exclaim in their hearts. As expected of the high-level female alchemists sent by Dan Ge, each of them was a peerless beauty. The old man almost could not control himself. When the leading maid saw the expressions of Shimin Gang and the other 2, her lips curled into a sneer. 3 old men, it was you who caused Qin Yin to be seriously injured. 3rd Grandpa self-destructed. I swear, today, you will die without a complete corpse. Although Ah Ku was filled with hatred, the seductive expression on her face increased. Accompanied by her seductive smile, a rich young master who was closest to the auction stage suddenly covered his crotch with both hands. He lost control of his bowels. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this shitty auction where even the birds don't shit. I am your ancestor, the chief auctioneer, Xian Chongyang. Dan Xian said with a languid face. He took out a withered blade of grass and poked at his mouth. He picked at his yellowed teeth and then scraped out a piece of broken tooth. He used his dirty fingers to pick up the broken tooth and flicked it. With a whoosh, it flew to the Shimin family's disciple area and landed on the face of 7th Elder's grandson. Once these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned, including Shimin Gang and his 2 companions. What did he mean by welcome shitty sons of bitches? Also, Yihong Auction House was the #1 auction house for trash. What did he mean by shitty? You son of a bitch! 7th Elder Shimin's grandson was furious. He stood up, and his Yuan Qi raged. His clothes fluttered as he angrily pointed at Dan Xian. How dare you? Shimin Gang's palm slammed on the armrest as he stared at 7th Elder's grandson. According to Hai Dafu and Jin Yushuan's introduction, this senior Xian Chongyang was a powerful figure from more than 100 years ago. In that case, he had the right to call the descendants of the 3 great clans trash and the right to despise the Yihong auction house for being a godforsaken place. I'm sorry, senior auctioneer. The 7th Elder's grandson's face was full of humiliation. He slapped himself in the face and wiped off the crumbs on the corner of his mouth. At this moment, he felt a pungent odor that almost made him faint.